So for most of this stream, or at least the beginning part of it, I'm mostly going to be focusing on the guide, and I'm probably not going to be responding too much to chat unless there's some questions about this. But what we're going to do is start making a guide for Elden Ring no-hit, sorcery only, any percent. And I'm going to do one thing first before we actually get into the full guide itself. We're going to go and watch this video that I had made, which is a compilation of the strats used for the boss kills. So, all the major ones at least, will just show off what's what. So starting with Margit, some of the spells we start off with Magic Glintblade, which we use a few places. And then we switch over to Carian Slicer for the kill. I'll also go into more details in the guide when we get to like levels and stuff like this, but this is just to show off what we're actually doing. And this isn't the only way you can do it. There's plenty of other stuff. Like I could have squeezed in a couple of hits with another spell, like Glintstone Pebble, to do some damage during the phase transition animation there. But that went pretty well. So a couple of Glintstone, 3 of them to get started, and then Carian Slicer to get him into phase transition, and then more Carian Slicer to finish. And there are other spells you can use. For Godrick, we're going to be using Night Comet, at least to start off, and then we'll switch to Carian Slicer after that. I actually messed up here in this because I would normally have more FP for a 4th cast of Night Comet, but I'll get into that in the guide as well. So I did a few to set up. I think it was 3 hits with Night Comet, and then another 3 after refilling. I did a couple during the phase transition animation. We switch to Carian Slicer and go up for the kill. You actually have a lot of time during that. Like, you could drink, you could have to recover stamina, and you could still get that kill. It's actually pretty comfy. Next, we head over to Caelid to fight Radahn. Obviously, dodge the arrow at the beginning. You can get on the horse, but I do it this way because there's a very consistent setup. If you run backward, I don't know how it would work if you got on the horse right away and ran backwards to despawn him even earlier. But basically, we're going to cast a bunch of Magic Glintblade, and if you manage your timing and distance right, you'll get the same opener every single time. At least from my experience. But this is one that you would want to practice a lot to get down the strats. So we did 5 to start, we did another 5, and now we're doing a final 5 Glintblade. We switch to Carian Slicer, roll through the AoE, and finish. He doesn't even get up into the sky, like not even close. Next, we'll head over to Leyndell, and we'll be taking care of the Draconic Sentinel. You have to get behind him to get set up. Oh, dude, how long has my voice been muted? What the hell? Really? Of course I would do that while making a guide. No, there's no problem with nighttime. Let me go back and explain that real quick. No, so the question was, does nighttime matter when you're sneaking up at the beginning of this? And as far as I know, no, it does not. So we get here to set up. We'll watch this one more time because I'll go ahead and say what's going on. Thanks for pointing that out. So one thing that I didn't realize in Elden Ring at first is that charged casting is a thing. So with Magic Glintblade, you can do this. You can't do it with every spell, but you can do charged casts where you hold down the R1 button and it'll do a longer casting animation, and it's sort of like builds up the spell, and you'll do a little bit more damage with it. It's pretty nice, and it doesn't cost any extra FP. I don't remember for sure if it costs any extra stamina, so I'm not 100% on that, but it doesn't cost any extra FP to do this. But what we're going to do here is we're going to start with 2 charged casts, and then we're going to do 6 regular casts of Glintblade, and then we're going to switch over to Carian Slicer to finish. So you can see these first 2 are a little bit slower than the rest. And then you switch to Carian Slicer, and boom, there's the kill. So getting back to Goldfrey, now that we went through that, we're going to drink our physic early because the tears in the physic last for 3 minutes, the ones that we use. So we have plenty of time. We're going to kill Goldfrey and the Black Knife Assassin immediately afterward. And the physic will still be active for that. We have plenty of time for it. We'll only use Night Comet for Goldfrey. It's very, very effective. Only issue with it is that it does cost a significant amount of FP and stamina, but it's fine. You just want to be careful when you're chaining casts like that, when you're doing them one right after another, because you need to be watching him to see if he's queuing up an attack. Basically, if you do an attack and then you just watch him immediately afterward for like a fraction of a second, you'll be able to tell if he's, you know, input reading you and immediately responding. And if not, then you know that you can do another cast and you're safe. Like right there, I delayed a moment. I would normally want to drink FP, but I just delayed for a tiny little bit and saw that he was following up. And boom, plenty of time, plenty of space, no issues. So you just want to run up quickly afterward, get up to the Black Knife Assassin, and then we'll switch over to Magic Glintblade to kill that one. It's another enemy where we use charged casts to help out. And it's really nice with an attack like Magic Glintblade, because once you cast it, there's a bit of a delay before the projectile actually fires off. And I think with the charge casting, the delay might be even a bit longer than normal. So we do 1, 2 charge casts, and then I do 5 normal casts. You just want to watch for this guy, because he can start doing that, whatever that is, Blood Flame or Black Flame, I forget what it's called. But he can, or she can still do that attack, even while getting hit by your Glintblade spell. So you got to be ready for that and dodge sometimes. Getting up to Morgott, what you basically want to do is do some setup damage. You don't want to phase him too early. And then you're going to bait out an attack and punish a whole bunch into phase transition. And then just finish him off with Night Comet. So here, I do 1, 2, 3. And that's very specific. Like, I'm not getting super specific on the damage setup, but I'm making sure to only do 3 attacks with Carian Slicer. No more. Just because of my setup in doing it. And again, we'll go into more detail on everything. I just want to get an overview of the boss fights. So yeah, bait out the spear attack. Run under when he goes airborne. And this time we do 5 attacks with Carian Slicer. Refill FP. Get ready for Night Comet. You want to do a little bit of a delay. Make sure that there's no geysers of puke or whatever near you. Cast a bunch of Night Comet and refill FP. And then A couple more should do it. And depending on your routing, you may want to pop the golden foot there so you get more runes. The gold pickled foot or whatever it is. I cut right to Fire Giant, but that's okay. We're gonna break his ankle, or, you know, cut his splints or whatever it is. We'll do that with Carian Slicer. And then we'll do a bunch of punishes as he's, like, staggered from that. And then we'll send him into phase transition, switch to Rock Sling to stagger him, and finish with Carian Slicer again. This was really good RNG. You're not always going to get this. Phase 1 can be tough sometimes. You just have to run around and deal with it. Yeah, refill FP. Lock onto his eye in the center of his body. It should only take 3 casts of Rock Sling, but it can sometimes take 4. So you got to be patient. And then when he's staggered, you run up with Carian Slicer and hit him in the head. And he's dead. Easy peasy. Next is Godskin Duo. So I do a setup with sleep pots. You can do, like, there are other faster ways to do it, but I found, well, I didn't find this. I believe this was Couch Jockey who found this, and I think he shared it with Flippy, and Flippy was using it. So I also found it pretty comfortable, and that's why I'm using it here. But you basically get your setup with position and angle and height and everything. You throw a sleep pot, and then I swung with the knife and ducked afterward. It moves me forward a little bit, and the collision of this pillar is blocking them from seeing you, so they don't aggro to you. It's really nice. So we put the big one to sleep. We're going to put the skinny one to sleep in a moment. Pillar is still blocking me, so he can't see me. I get my lineup. Throw another sleeping pot. Watch to make sure it takes effect. And then we get set up. And we'll go over, like, buffs and physics and everything when we get there. More charged cast of Glintblade. I do 3 charged ones, let stamina refill, and then go for Carian Slicer. Do a lot of damage here. Same setup on this guy. 3 charged casts of Glintblade. Switch to Slicer. Once stamina is refilled, you go. We probably could do enough damage to kill them outright. But I just didn't bother to set that up. I knew the timing of when to throw the next sleep pot. So you just knock him to sleep. And then we don't even need to do any more Glintblade casting. He's so low that we can just finish him off with Carian Slicer, and boom, he's dead. Maliketh is actually probably one of the more difficult ones. You need to do some setup damage. You need to get him to phase transition, and then you want to be set up for phase 2. It's a bit specific in phase 2. Phase 1 is mostly just setup. I gotta think about this. I think it should take 7 casts of Glintblade to phase him. So I'm looking to do as many of those as possible. You just want to watch and make sure that the projectiles connect. So you got to kind of watch his health bar and see how many actually connect. So 4 of them connected, 6 of them connected. So I refill FP and cast Golden Vow when I have an opportunity. That was not a good roll. Don't do it like that. So we'll get our final Glintblade cast. This one might miss. I kind of forget. No, it hits. Oh, it did miss. All right, so we have to do one more. Not a big deal. You don't need tons of FP for phase 2. I just wanted to make sure we had enough. Lock on, back up, 4 casts of Glintblade, roll backwards, switch to Slicer, run underneath, and boom, he's dead. Takes some practice to get comfortable with that, but it works very, very well. Gideon, pretty easy one. I don't even think he's going to move for the most part. It is possible for him to roll after some of these attacks, you'll see. I'll try and point out when it can happen. But for the most part, I don't think it was ever really a problem. This strat was super cozy for me. So we're going to do 3 casts, 3 charged casts, I think. And then we do 3 casts regular. And then we switch to Night Comet. And he's just obliterated. Sometimes when the Glint Blade projectiles hit, he can eventually roll away. But with Night Comet, the enemies don't even see the projectiles, so they won't dodge the projectile. They might dodge the initial cast, but it's not a big deal. And then, yeah, when we go to Hoarah, the first time we get there, we bone out, and we come back and set up for a second encounter. And this is how the second encounter is going to go. And we do this because with the first encounter, with the cutscene, it kind of spawns you in the middle of the arena, and you don't want to be there. You want to be back by the fog wall as soon as you enter, which is what's going to happen here on the second encounter. So, bone out the first time, return, get set up, and go again. And this is going to be all Night Comet. You pretty much just spam Night Comet. It's kind of ridiculous. Once you get a certain distance close enough where the projectiles will hit, but far enough away that he won't attack you, you start casting, you back up. I did 4 of them. You can refill FP after that if you want. But you can also do it here. It's just a bit tight on the timing with that stomp. That phases him. We actually got lucky in this video, and the projectile hit him a second time after phase transition. That isn't normal. But, I mean, you don't even have to deal with phase 2. Like, look at that. It's ridiculous. It's amazing, though. The final 2, Radahn and Elden Beast. Radahn is going to be Night Comet into Carian Slicer. You'll see how it plays out, but we pretty much kill him during phase transition. And then we're going to switch to Meteorite and get ready for Elden Beast. So we're going to start off with 4 casts of Night Comet. Switch to Carian Slicer. Roll. 3 punishes and get away. Dodge attacks if you have to. Once he goes into phase, roll through. You can punish once, then roll through and finish. Get set up for Elden Beast. If you need to do a little bit of menuing, you can do it now, or you can do it at the very beginning of Elden Beast fight. You have a bit of time. Get in position, wait, move a bit, angle yourself, and fire Meteorite. You need to hold down R1 while this is happening. You have to charge the cast and continue holding it. So we did a boatload of damage there. I think we did 17 or 18,000 damage there. Ideally, he'll do something like this where he just goes straight into the ring, the Elden Ring attack. And then if you get your position right, you can predict where he'll be, and boom, he's dead before he can do anything. And those are the boss fights. So we are wildly powerful with this build. With that all said, we're going to go into the run and get started. So, I think we were about here. Yeah, I closed out my tool. Yeah. The previous run accidentally had my practice tool open, and I realized it when we got into the Grafted Scion fight, so I had to cancel that one and start fresh. But you're going to start off with the Astrologer class, and we use the Cracked Pot, the 3 Cracked Pots, as our keepsake. You don't really need to do that. You get more crafting pots, and honestly, we only need like 3 of them during the entire run. So you could go with a different one if you want to. I just choose that because whatever. It's basically what I saw on Flippy's route, and I was mostly mimicking that, and I didn't see a need for any of the other stuff. I'm going to keep the volume of this video low for the most part, unless there's something we specifically need to see. And then I don't really want to slow this down. I think we'll mostly watch the entire thing at regular speed just so I can commentate on this and that as we go through. But maybe I'll speed it up for certain parts here. We literally do not have enough FP to fight Grafted Scion with sorcery. So unless you fight a melee, our only option is to just jump off, take the script to death, and just move on with it. So pretty unfortunate that you can't even fight him at all. So it is what it is. Entertaining us with the TTS and Brian. But yeah, there's going to be about 60 minutes of setup. We have to spend a bit of time getting certain items like the staffs, the proper spells, getting the physic tiers. So it takes a little bit of time to get everything set up. But we get very, very powerful before even getting to Stormveil. And you could actually reroute it to do some other stuff. I'll comment on that probably at the end of setup. Because there are some changes you can make. But first things first, we just run up to the Church of LA, or however you say it, and grab the grace there. We'll go grab another grace by the gate front, or the one by Agil Lake North, and get torrents. In terms of materials that you'll want to get, you'll want some Roa fruit, I think. You'll want some mushrooms, and then we'll need some St. Trina's lilies. We'll collect plenty of them along the way. I'll try and point out where we get them. Something earlier in stream, but actually I'll say it again for anybody who is in the US. Remember that Sunday is Mother's Day. Don't forget. So you can also go to the gate front, Grace, and you can pick up the 4 kukri that are off to the left. There's like a soldier hunched over a body or whatever. You could get those if you want to. I actually got them for all remembrances, but I just wasn't getting them. And you don't need to kill that boar. That was actually just a joke because it ended one of Flippy's runs. And I think it was literally the only time I ever saw and killed that boar. But it was kind of fitting that it actually ended up being in my run. So for the early setup, some of the stuff that we're going to do right away is we're going to have to get a particular scroll to get some spells. We'll need to get some runes. We'll get some various items, and just there's also a staff that we need to get. We'll be using the meteorite staff all the way up until Fire Giant because it has S scaling with intelligence, and you cannot upgrade that staff, but its scaling is so good that once we get some levels, like, we'll be set up. It'll carry us through a good portion of the run. And then we'll eventually go to Lusat's staff, and we'll immediately upgrade that to +9, and then eventually to +10, and we'll keep going with it. So we head up to Stormhill Shack. That's probably what it is in the US as well, I'm assuming. I guess that's the rule it always follows, right? I just never really paid attention. Make sure to grab golden seeds along the way. I'll try and point out where we get them. That is one thing that's important in this, is you need to have a good amount of flasks. So we'll be getting golden seeds and the crystal tears. Grab that stone sword key because we needed to get a talisman in a little bit. Talk to Roderica. You need to get the jellyfish summon from her. And that's all we need. We're good. Cool. I set the time to morning because we'll be riding through a couple of areas where there are Knights Cavalry bosses. So you don't want them around during the daytime. So I warp back to the previous Grace, hop on Torrent, and we start getting some items. We'll pick up a Somber Stone 1. We'll pick up the Gold Pickled Foulfoot. We'll pick up the Royal House Scroll. And a couple of other items, some runes along the way and whatnot. You'll see here. So yeah, Somber 1 is right over here on this chair. I mean, relatively quick. You can just quickly grab the foot and get out. You don't need to really worry about those guys. I like to go and pick up that. I actually missed the item, I think. Yeah, and I had to go back for it. There's a type of cured meat. I think it's what immunizing cured meat. It gives you extra poison buildup resistance, and we'll use that when we go into Fort Ferrith. So I kind of messed up the first time and just had to run back through. Just make sure you get that. Yeah, immunizing cured meat. You don't need to pick that up if you're comfortable going through Fort Ferrith without any additional protection. There are some ways to like trick the enemies and get them away from there or whatever, but it's right along the way. It's super convenient, so it takes no time unless you mess it up like I did. If you want to, I haven't found any good use for Starlight Shards in the any percent, but up here at these, whatever they are, the stone basins or whatever, you know, there's always a Starlight Shards. You can go and get those if you want to. I don't think they're super necessary in the any percent, but there are a couple places in all remembrances where you would want them, so it's good to know about them. Just kill this guy and grab the Royal House Scroll. That'll give us a couple of spells. We turn the spells into the Turtle Pope up at the Church of Vows, so we'll do that later. That's where we get some sorceries early on, and then we'll actually pick up the item. Yeah, you can grab the Trina's Lilies. I guess they're not Saint Trina's Lilies, they're just Trina's Lily. And then a couple of mushrooms are good. We pick up plenty of mushrooms along the way, and there are a lot of really good pickup locations, so you don't have to worry about it too much. I really just wanted that Golden Rune 4. You can go and peach extra runes if you want to. But I specifically want that Golden Rune 4 because it gives us 1,200 runes. And that's the exact price of the Beast Repellent Torch that you can buy. So it's really nice to just have that rune and pop it when you need it. We go to Fort Height West and grab the Grace there. And then we're going to head north to the Third Church of Marika. And we'll pick up our Physic and a Crystal Tear from there. You just gotta avoid the rune bears around here. It's really the only concern. So once I see them, I just veer off a little bit to the right. Make sure I don't get too close and aggro them. Because you can see the second one there, and I just like to avoid him. Alright, we should have plenty of mushrooms already. Yeah, we already have 11. So I don't really need to worry about any more, but there's a couple we can pick up for free. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Once you figure out the locations, you'll get comfortable with this. There's a lot of things that you just go into autopilot mode once you've done this a couple of times. So I don't remember the exact details of everything. We don't bother with the Crimson Crystal Tier. Oh, the Sacred Tier. Yeah, the Sacred Tier is what we needed. But yeah, you pick up the Physic there. Pick up the Crystal Tier. Or Sacred Tier, sorry. The Sacred Tier. Because that increases how much health or FP it refills. It's very, very nice. Just head up this hill and hop up the Spirit Spring. We'll hop up the second one in a moment. There's a Trina's Lily along the way you can pick up. You want to head up northwest to these ruins? I guess it's more west. And this is where you need to use the stone sword key that we picked up at Stormhill Shack. So remember, if you forget, that's where you need to go back. You just need one. And this only, like, you optionally may not even need this talisman. It just increases stamina recovery. So you could probably go without this if you don't really care. But there are a couple places in the run where it's nice to have. And it's pretty free. Like, we go to Stormhill Shack, so the stone sword key is there. We go past here pretty easily anyway, so not much time lost. Remember to equip your talismans. Don't forget. I did that so much. Just, you need to equip them. Head over to these tombstones that stick out of the cliff. I have a real bad tendency to just forget. So, I'm trying to make a better habit. And you're going to go over to these coffins. And we're just picking up runes and one cookbook. Oh, whoops. Yeah, I wanted that 4, not the 1. But for some reason, I peached a whole bunch of them here. And that's another good pickup, the Golden Rune 6. Okay, so head back to the 3rd church. And then there's a portal nearby that we're going to use to warp to Caelid. Yeah, I guess I just didn't realize that it's just hidden right out here in these bushes in the water. Sunday of May. I don't know why. I probably knew that and just forgot. But that makes sense. So it warps you to northern Caelid. You can ride down the hill. You don't have to worry about the Black Kindred if you spawn behind him. He won't aggro to you. Another golden seed you can get. We want to get down to Lenne's Rise over there. That's where we're going. So there was another Starlight Shard up high, up top. You could go grab that if you want, but again, not really any need. The Starlight Shards, when you consume them, they regenerate a little bit of FP over time. So it's useful in some boss fights. I couldn't remember where I was supposed to drop down. Just find a spot that works, and then you just drop down. And then stay over to the right side near the cliff facing. Head down the hill towards the bridge. It's daytime, so we don't have a Knight's Cavalry. If you wanted to, you could come here at nighttime. You could cheese the Knight's Cavalry. You could get 42,000 souls from doing that. And when I was getting ready for All Remembrances, that was what I started doing. So if you want to do that and get some extra souls early on, there's nothing stopping you. Feel free to. I think it's actually a good idea if you're comfortable doing that cheese. I mean, we're only, 12, 13 minutes in. It's not a hard reset if you need to do that. So, your call. Hop up the Spirit Spring and jump in the air to land up top. Or you could land on top of the building, drop down, and walk through to get back up here. But we come up to get a Memory Stone. And we grab the Grace so that we can warp back once we're done here. Make sure that my camera doesn't get screwed up or anything like that. Then just hop back up the Spirit Spring and we're going to go up high. I also need to remember that if that ever does happen, there's some good runes you can pick up here. There's a rune 8, 6, and then I think a 3. Yeah. So you can get some good runes there. Could have been saved if I had opened the menu and fast traveled quickly enough. I gotta remember to, go to that as that's my go-to. Just watch out for the lightning. It's environmental damage anyway. It's not a hit. I don't even know if it would kill you in one shot. But, just avoid it. Don't aggro the... whatever it is. The avatar that usually spawns here. And then head around to this other Spirit Spring and hop up again. And now we're up near Fort Ferrith. We're not going to go in here just yet. We still need the Beast Repellent Torch before we go through here. Okay, grab the Grace, and And we just do a bit of riding. We go through a bit of Caelid. We need to go pick up a couple items before we continue. Go to the merchant. And yeah, there are a couple pickups, I guess. But yeah, once again, the setup really isn't that bad. It's just a little bit long because of how many items we need to get. But it allows us to become very strong very quickly. And you'll see that when we get to Stormveil. I mean, we just tear through bosses. You already saw it with the boss fights. You don't need to go for this rune if you don't want to. It's silly too. It's a rune 5. It's only like 1,600 runes anyway, I think. But that dragon never does anything, so you can grab it if you want to. I don't know. I was just peaching it because why not? So we grab Dragon Barrow West. It looks like I'm going up for the Beast Repellent Torch right away. I couldn't really remember what order I was doing this stuff in. And then I could never figure this out. If there's actually a consistent path to run through here where the dogs are, you know, in the same place every time or anything like that. So just ride through here a few times and you'll see how they kind of are and how they kind of move around. As long as you keep a reasonable amount of space, they're not going to see you in aggro. And yeah, that's where I popped the golden rune for, because it's 1,200 runes. Perfect. Just grab the torch. I guess I'm going through Fort Ferrith right now. Yeah, it makes sense. So what I was doing is equipping the torch and equipping all of my astrologer set for the extra resistance to the poison buildup. I popped the immunizing cured meat. I went ahead and ate it. And then you can see the buildup is trickling back down. Basically, by the time we get through here, our buildup will be down to 0. So even if they do the poison gas, we have enough protection to prevent the proc. And yeah, you can see that's about the most buildup I've ever gotten. Is that gonna get me? Right there. No. That was pretty bad RNG. Maybe I ran through there poorly or something. Like I can't take off. And again, there are other things you can do. You can use like a sword and hit the outer wall to distract them and lure them away from their normal spots. So we got the half of the Dectus medallion. And then come over for Radagon's Source Seal. We'll need the Source Seal because there are certain staffs that we don't have the attributes to equip them unless we have the Source Seal equipped. That's why we're getting this. All good. Since our leveling focuses on intelligence and mind, this gives us a couple levels of strength and dexterity and endurance as well. So it allows us to equip certain things. So we warp back to Church of Ele, and we talk to Rena, Ronnie, whatever she's going by. Get the Spirit Calling Bell so that we can use the... We only use the Jellyfish Summon to acquire an item. We don't actually use it in combat or anything. Pretty annoying to have to actually sit here and just go through this dialogue. And then, yeah, talk to Melina, skip her dialogue. You don't want to go to the round table just yet. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. Go ahead and sell all of your runes in a moment. Oh, I liked getting Finger Snap because one of my custom characters was Thanos. And I was using Finger Snap with him just because it looked perfect. Let me go back because I actually missed what I was doing here. So we need to, we're buying cracked pots. We're buying the crafting kit. And then for a couple of areas, you could buy the telescope or whatever this is, the eyepiece, because it allows you to line up some things properly. I'll try and point out some places where it would be useful. But for me, I was using mouse and keyboard, so I was able to get those setups without this. Do whatever's comfortable for you. So you need the cracked pot and the crafting kit, and you can optionally get the telescope if you want. Level up intelligence, but you're going to need some runes in a little bit. So make sure you have at least something left over, like 1,000 runes. If you go over and cheese the Knights Cavalry, you'll have way more runes and you won't have to worry about it as much. But our goal, with this routing, which you can change things how you want, my goal was to get 36 intelligence and 16 mind before we get to Stormveil. The rest doesn't matter. And obviously, if you peach extra items or change some stuff around, it doesn't need to be that exact setup. I would recommend 16 mind, and that's mostly because with Night Comet, which is an extremely powerful spell, 15 mind is just barely not enough FP to cast Night Comet 4 times. With 16 mind, you have enough FP for it. I went over to we warped to Dragon Barrow West, and I went to those coffins and picked up that Golden Rune 6 along the way. It's a pretty easy pickup. And then we're going to head back west and head back south to the swamp and pick up a few items in there. I think there's another pathing you can take, but this is fine too. You just cut down through the ruins. You'll get to the edge of the swamp. Why don't I do it right away? Get the grace. Go down for the rune. The staff. So right now down here is where we pick up the meteorite staff. Get the torch. We pick up rock sling. Why don't I do it that way? And then there's an armor set also in the swamp. I think it's a traveler set or something like that. That's good to pick up in all remembrances for resistance to rot in a couple of areas. But I don't think you need it in the any percent. So yeah, you just go around the side of the building to get the meteorite staff. Make sure to switch over to it. You need to have, I think, like 28 mind. Or I'm sorry, 28 intelligence, I think, in order to equip that. I can't remember the exact number. I actually should maybe have those up. But you need to have higher intelligence to equip that staff. And then that chest down there is where you get rock sling. I was mistaken. It was 18 intelligence to use the meteorite staff. So you have to have some levels before you can actually use that staff. And then again, because you can't upgrade it, but because of its scaling, we rely on good leveling to make this staff effective, which is fine because this setup split, you'll get plenty of runes naturally anyhow. So it works out pretty well. We warp back to Fort Ferrith. The spells that I have attuned right now are Glintstone Pebble, which we have by default, and then I also equipped Rock Sling. I didn't mention that. So once you get Rock Sling, take a moment to equip it. Kill that guy if you want. Pick up Golden Seed. And then you just want to get up here and hop in. You can also ride up the stairs and go right past the pumpkin head if you're running fast. You want to kill that first enemy up there, this rat, that enemy up there. You can hop up the stairs. If you don't hop over the stairs, you need to kill the other rat that was over in the grass. You kind of saw it a moment ago. Kill this guy with Pebble. Refill FP. And this is slick. I'm pretty sure Rob Teaches showed me this. You cast Rock Sling twice to stagger him. And then you just finish him with Glintstone Pebble. Beautiful. And that's how you get Bloody Slash, which we'll use to set up RTSR once we get it. Get the other half of the Dectus medallion. Pretty nice. Definitely the way to go. And then I think at this point we go back to Stormhill.
Make any sense to do it in that order?
And we have to get Golden Vow as well. So at this point, we're picking up our Ashes of War that we'll be using in the run, which are Bloody Slash and Golden Vow. There's no place where you really need Bloodhound Step. If you decide to go to Volcano Manor and get those, obviously you can. It should be pretty easy. Killing that Bloodhound Knight or whatever it is shouldn't really be any struggle. I'm not sure if I'm sure there's actually a faster way to get over to this hill, but I just went that little detour because it felt much safer. You don't aggro the dogs or whatever. There's sort of like a wind and a bunch of howling that happens, but you can avoid it if you take that pathing. You can use Rock Sling. I accidentally locked onto the horse there, but you can lock onto the knight, and it'll work the same. Pick up Golden Vow from the dude. Head back to Stormhill Shack.
Head back to the round table.
And then we're gonna head back to Round Table.
Should update my notes.
All that we really do here is pick up a dagger from the shop, and then we equip our Ashes of War. You can put them on whichever weapons you want. You can see the ones that I use, or you can use whichever ones you want. But while that's happening, I'll be right back, because you guys can see what's happening without me here.
Okay. Seems better. Yeah, whatever. Can't cast when you're in the round table, so grab a dagger.
Yeah, it looks like I put Bloody Slash on the dagger, and then Golden Vow on the short sword. I think I was selling some stuff. I mean, you don't need to, but maybe if I was short on runes or something like that, and also just to clear up inventory space and make it easier to switch around the various equipment without having clutter. Once you're done, head to Stormhill,
Seems good. Think we're good to move to
and we're going to ride north into Liurnia. I don't remember if I needed to, but I think I always rode through here at nighttime. Just because eventually we're going to go kill a Deathbird in Liurnia. And I think it needs to be nighttime for them to spawn or something. I actually can't quite remember. You honestly don't need this. I was only picking up this cookbook because it allows you to craft soft cotton, and I was trying to figure out if there was a place or two where I could make good use of it, but I never ended up really needing it, so you don't need to pick that up if you don't want to.
buy something. Mostly Farum Azula has shown a couple places where that might be needed. But I think we have that all sorted out now. So this is just a backup plan.
It's pretty typical stuff. You can pick up some mushrooms along the way, some Roa fruit. We head over to Church of Irith, or whatever it is, and we just grab the sacred tear that's inside. We double back, and I always had trouble finding these tombstones sticking out of the cliff.
Good.
But once you find them, just drop down safely.
Oh, we didn't there. All right. Last time we did. Don't really remember.
And then what I was doing was going kind of northeast, crossing the road. Just watching out for any enemies along the way, because I kind of forget where this is. We're looking for these balloons, or whatever they are. You got to watch out. There's a dog sleeping in the bush there. Because when you pop those, you get golden runes 6, which is really nice. Those are like 2,000 runes apiece. So we get these 2, and then there are 5 more in down in the, I don't know, lake, swamp area, whatever it is.
Nice.
So it's a nice,
Okay,
easy way to get,
sure to grab
I mean, that's 14,000 runes total.
here.
Decently
Wherever it
useful
is.
in early game.
Yeah, here it is.
Head up north, and we're going to grab this grace. I think it's Liurnia Highway North.
Kill the Deathbird.
You could go another way and get some graces down by like Boil Prawn Shack, which I think we'll get Boil Prawn Shack eventually anyhow. But it's good to grab that Liurnia Highway North. I think it makes things a little easier. Saves a bit of time, I think. But head down west into the water. Avoid these enemies in the trees. If you're heading west, I was going slightly like 1 tick north of that in general. And that mostly avoided any of the problem enemies in this area.
Hello.
Right, I'm pretty sure we don't even talk to Raya with this routing, so you don't need to bother with that if you don't want it. If you're doing all remembrances, you'll want to talk to her so that you can get into Volcano Manor later. But hop up these ruins, get up top. And we're just going to use Rock Sling on this guy. Just be careful. Rock Sling isn't the fastest cast. So, you know, when you're chaining casts like this, you got to be careful. Locking onto his head is nice, but be careful of where it lies when he's staggered, because it could get blocked by the ruins themselves. You can lock onto his head. You can also lock onto his body. So there are 2 different lock-on points. Something I didn't mention earlier, and I absolutely should have. Back when we were at Church of Ele and we were leveling up, one other thing I did was I allocated my flasks. I upgraded what we had in terms of golden seeds and sacred tears. And I put all of them into FP except for one of them that I kept for health purposes. Make sure you would do that early. And then we just got the Red Feather Branch Sword, you know, RTSR. We warped back to Liurnia Highway North. And we're going to rotate around the west side of this hill. Stay on the left edge. You're going to go up into this tower and pick up a staff. Keep sprinting on the horse there. You dodge that projectile when you do that. Hop off and kill this guy quickly before he attacks you.
Okay.
And then once you climb up top of this tower, you just got to crouch and sneak up to the item. And the sorcerer that was up there won't see you, won't hear you, no problems. And you can still warp away because no one's aggroed to you. So just be sneaky about it. So that was Carian Glintblade Staff. Something that took me a bit to really understand and realize what was going on was that a lot of times we'll equip a separate staff in our offhand And simply having certain staffs equipped, even if it's not the one that you're using for casting spells, it'll still give you a bonus to certain kinds of magic. So Carian Glintblade staff will give us a damage boost to Carian Glintblade. Or Magic Glintblade, rather, which we used pretty frequently in this run. So it did a good amount of damage. It was nice to get bonus from it. Once we warp back to Liurnia Highway North, we just went sort of east around the same sort of hill where we were and crossed over. If you stay on the left side over here, you can pick up another Starlight Shard, but again, no real practical use in the any percent, so you don't need to if you don't want to.
But I guess we'll grab them just in case we find a use. Still don't know.
And this is a pretty easy, like, you just ride up here, right up north. You head past the Artist Shack.
Church of Vows. We have more runes.
You just, you know, give some distance for all the enemies around here. This is a pretty easy area. Nothing too crazy going on.
With this routing, so all good.
And once you head past the shack, you just cross the stone bridge, and we're going to keep going north up to the Church of Vows up there. That's our next destination. Kind of the same deal here. I stuck pretty far to the left to avoid mostly that guy right there that was holding the whatever it was, the giant torch kind of thing, because they do whatever that is. I actually don't remember what it's even called, but it's like the blood magic, the blood incantations. And those projectiles can travel a surprising distance, so you just want to avoid that guy. Talk to the Turtle Pope. Get through his initial dialogue. And then we turn in the Royal House Scroll to him. Now we can buy Magic Glintblade and Carian Slicer. I think that actually only gives us Carian Slicer. I think Magic Glintblade is already there by default. One other thing real quick is that you could get this Glintblade Phalanx. That has some practical uses here and there, but I ended up just doing other stuff. So the only ones that we need are Magic Glintblade, and you need 3,000 runes, and then another 1,500 for Carian Slicer. So make sure you've got at least 4,500 when you're coming up to Church of Vows. I had enough runes, I think, to level up after this. And I also want to go equip the spells, so grab the Grace. And we also need this Grace because we'll be coming back here in a moment. So the setup in early game is typically Slicer, Glintstone Pebble, and Magic Glintblade. And again, we'll be rocking the Meteorite Staff as our actual staff, but you can see I already have the Carian Glintblade Staff equipped in my offhand, so that we can get bonuses when we use Magic Glintblade.
Probably over in like Altus Plateau or something.
We'll have to switch that out a number of times during the run, and sometimes you even switch it out in the middle of a fight. But it's not very difficult. It's just another extra step to remember here and there, so not a huge deal. I think I put on the Stamina Talisman because we're heading over to the Carian Study Hall, and stamina management can be a little bit important in here. I take this pathing to avoid the enemies, and I know that there's a mushroom pickup right there. One little detail here is that once you get far enough along, get back to the middle of the path and just keep sprinting. Just keep, going fast while you're on Torrent. There are a couple of enemies that can spawn on either side of the road, and they'll try and cast some magic at you. But if you keep moving at full speed, the projectiles won't hit you. You don't need this grace in any percent. You'll want it in all remembrances. This is one of the more annoying little running sections. Oh, it looks like I didn't actually equip stamina talismans. Stamina talismans, so disregard that. I would go through here a number of times in practice. The way that NPC spawns and the way that they move afterward seems like it can vary a bit. So go through there quite a few times to get comfortable with the various scenarios that can happen, because that NPC can fire, I think it's Loretta's great bow at you. It's like an archery type of sorcery. I also didn't say what was going on. The reason that we were coming here was to go up those stairs and grab the Carian glintstone staff, run around and get onto this lift, and then just bone out. Doesn't matter if you lose your runes as long as you've spent as many of them as you need. Like, leveling up beforehand is a good idea before coming to Carian Study Hall.
For some parkour.
So we're back at Church of Vows, and we're going to head up northwest to this rock up here and do a little bit of parkour to get down to an area where an Erd Tree avatar is, and we're going to kill that for some physic tiers. Really one in particular. I was using mouse and keyboard here. You just want to be careful when you're doing this parkour. Find what works for you.
I guess that works.
You want to get down onto this platform right here. And then walk off and land on that. If you land too much lower, you'll die. And then once you're at this part, you can get back on your horse and jump over there. You won't take fall damage on that.
It's really monka, but like it's actually pretty okay. There's actually quite a bit of wiggle room there, and if you switch to mouse and keyboard, it makes it even easier.
There's some wolves, and I think another enemy off to the right side, so give them some space. You want RTSR set up here, so make sure you have the right talisman, get your Bloody Slash ready. There's a cool little detail. If you go over to Kenneth Height and clear out Fort Height after you've talked to him, and then go back and talk to him again, he'll give you the Erdsteel dagger, I think it is, which has, I think, a faith requirement that we never meet in the run. So what ends up happening, if you put Bloody Slash on that weapon where you don't have the attributes to equip it, you can still do Bloody Slash and chip away at your health, but it will not take away from your FP, which is kind of cool, but also just kind of not necessary. Also, real quick, some people will kill these guys. You can use Magic Glintblade, do like 2 charge casts from behind, they won't even see you, and you can kill them pretty easily. I've never had a problem, so I just run through here real fast and I've never been hit by them, but if you want to, you can kill some of those guys. So one thing I would recommend here is turn on the in-game music so that you can hear it. This is what I'm doing right now. And we'll listen to part of the fight. Basically, the music is playing while the avatar is aggroed to you. I did a really horrible job managing where I was there. Make sure you don't get caught on the pots or on the base of the tree anywhere. And you can just see I'm casting Glintblade at him and chipping away at his health. And then what we're doing here is waiting for... We're getting around the other side of the tree and waiting for him to de-aggro. And that's why we keep the in-game music going. Because
Alright, so he's rotating around my way.
Yeah, so the game music will turn off when he's de-aggroed. And that's how you tell. You want to approach from behind, but be careful. Sometimes he doesn't properly de-aggro. And even if you're behind him, he'll still see you somehow and turn around and start attacking you. So just be careful with that.
Pretty good damage.
But basically, that's the idea. The music plays when he's aggroed. It turns off when he's de-aggroed. So I'll turn the volume back down so we can just keep going. But use the in-game music to tell if he's aggroed still or not. Keep rotating around the tree until he de-aggros. Sneak up from behind. Cast Magic Lint Blade. Make sure you have the proper staff equipped in your offhand for the extra damage boost. It'll even apply when you're on the horse. Even though it's grayed out right now, you still technically have it equipped. But you just do these sneak attacks from behind. You can use charge casts if you want. You can lead into regular casts afterward. Good. And you should have plenty of FP to take him down. Now, do not warp away early. Even though enemy Feld showed up, you need to wait.
Do we warp back?
And now that the tiers have shown up, now you're good to warp.
I think we do.
I made that mistake once, and I had to warp back here.
Yeah, it is.
And then the physic tier showed up right away when I warped to this area. So it's not a big deal if you forget about it. You can go back and get it for free. So once we're done with that, we warp to Liurnia Highway North. And you go to this portal, which will take you right outside Rhea Lucaria. You can just hop down into the water. The fall damage there won't kill you. And we're heading out east a bit to get to this other tower. East-northeast, it looks like.
I mean, we have tons of mushrooms. I already have.
And then you take this portal to get further north.
We have tons of pickups. Probably wasting time going for some of these. Oh, wait, how did I add 2 hits to this split? We're still at 0 hits. What the hell?
I don't know. I alt-tabbed and tabbed back in and accidentally cast. Don't worry about that.
End. Why would I have hit end? Oh, because I was changing.
You can grab the Grace nearby.
And I hit it there. That's what it was.
You really don't even have to. Like, it's actually kind of silly, but it is a bit faster. When you go down here into the lake, you're right next to where all these balloons are.
No, we're still hitless.
So I go down and pop them all. And then I just warp back quickly. You don't need to warp back. You can just ride back if you want to. It doesn't add a huge amount of time. So yeah, I just warp back to save like a minute of riding. And then head up north. We're going to go up to EG. Get the Grace by him. We don't need him yet. We come back later to do upgrades, but we don't need it right now. Be careful with that jump. Make sure you clear that properly. I know with certain weapons equipped, there was a glitch where you wouldn't be able to double jump on torrents sometimes. It hasn't been a problem with sorcery as far as I could tell, but just be careful with those kind of jumps. So we just rotated around kind of where the cliffside was and dropped down at a safe spot. You're heading over here east, northeast, kind of. We're going to grab another physic tier. You just want to kill the 2 hands on the left. Be careful with the one at the back, though. You kind of saw he jumped over a projectile and was alive longer than I expected. It's a little weird. What the intelligence not tier will do is it will increase your intelligence by 10 for 3 minutes. The other tier that we picked up increases magic damage. I think all of your magic damage. So have an increased intelligence and have an increased magic damage. Pretty nice. And it lasts for a full 3 minutes. It's really good. I come over here to pick up this Somber 4. You don't need to. But it only costs like less than 30 seconds. And that way I don't have to spend another 4,000 runes at EG. because I've gotten back to EG before and not had enough runes to level up or to upgrade my weapon fully. So you can grab that Somber 4 if you want. You don't need to if you don't want to, though. Make sure to take this kind of pathing to get up here so that Loretta's archery sorcery doesn't hit you.
I was watching somebody else's stream and they said it, but this is Loretta attacking us here, isn't it? I don't know why.
Grab the Grace, and then what I like to do is go through and do this running section early. We have to kill Ghost Loretta and go past her to get another spell for Elden Beast, but we do that later in the run. We don't need to do it right now. You could probably, with a proper setup, go ahead and kill Loretta early. But I found it just easier to come back later, so it's another place where do whatever you feel. I like to set this to nighttime to make sneaking through here a little easier, especially up on the stone walkways. It's not mandatory, but it makes it a little easier.
Maybe I didn't go to this area until much later, or maybe I just never paid attention. I don't know. Hell, I probably knew that on my first playthrough and just already forgot.
I was doing a lot of that crouch recovery for stamina management. If you crouch and uncrouch like that, you recover a lot of stamina without slowing down much. It's better than, you know, letting go of your sprint button to recover stamina. It's also not that difficult to do. It's a little awkward to be pressing your L3 button so frequently, but you get used to it. Run along here. Watch out for those little sorcery traps on the ground. Watch out for these ghost guys. They can switch over to a crossbow and shoot bolts at you. Those bolts can go decently far, as you just saw. So be careful with it.
But we're already in a good spot, so we're fine. But I like getting that running section out of the way.
Really, the only goal for now is to grab this Grace, but right outside here and out in the grass is another tree with a golden seed, which you could go pick up right now if you wanted to. I just wasn't doing it at this point. But if you want to, you can grab another gold seed early. So I only did the running section because I wasn't fighting the boss. We'll come back later. Head over east, and we're going to cross over and head up to the Dectus lift. I want to go for that mushroom on the left because there are some enemies in the bushes and trees there.
It's easier to see items on the ground.
But down here in the water are 5 Trina's lilies that are really easy to pick up.
We do that early.
That alone is enough for the entire run, those 5. But I pick up more along the way just in case things go wrong. In all remembrances, you want to talk to this guy and get bewitching branches for later. But what you can do, if you have the runes early, you can buy them early. If not, grab this Grace at Bellum Church and come back later. But we don't need it in any percent. So we pick up as many of these sacred tears as we can along the way. We don't really go out of our way much to get them, but there's a lot of them we can get pretty easily. So we do that. Grab the rune arc item that's on the ground up here. You can also buy one from the round table hold. I think they sell 3 of them, but, you know, it costs 4,000 runes, and it's a free pickup here. So just do it. You can pick up smoldering butterflies. That's one of the crafted materials that was required for soft cotton, which, again, I said I never really used anywhere in the run. But if you find a use for it, there's a few places along the way you can get smoldering butterflies. At a number of the nomadic merchants, there'll be a pickup right at their little bonfire in front of them. And, you know, obviously there's some other places.
Alright, so after this, Altus Plateau, then we can head back to Sellia for revenge. And then we can go to Stormveil and get a run going.
So as long as you've activated 1 Grace in Altus Plateau, that will activate the Radahn Festival.
Forgot about the cutscene.
But it's also good to go through and do some of this writing section early, because there are 4 gold seeds that we can pick up. So it's really nice for upgrading your flasks early.
Man, look at this juicy.
And also that way you don't have to do more writing later on. It's fine to go ahead and get it out of the way early.
So it's no surprise, I suppose. Oh, I didn't.
Obviously, if you're riding through here at nighttime, there's a Knight's Cavalry. Be careful. I always went off so far to the right side that it was never an issue. But if you want to, it may be a good idea to turn this daytime. I liked keeping it nighttime, though, because, again, the Knight's Cavalry was never a problem, and when I'm riding up this hill on the right side here, there are a number of mushrooms that you can pick up, and mushrooms are required for the sleeping pots. That's the one cookbook that we picked up in East Limgrave early on at one of the coffins. The Fever's cookbook or whatever.
This field, whatever this.
And then also there's just some nice scenery along the way too, so it's kind of nice at nighttime. You don't see it as much during the day.
Can't really see it well at
Again, doesn't matter at all. It's just something I liked. Like right there, I got 6 mushrooms from right there. You get so many mushrooms along the way. If you want to, you can go and talk to Bach early on in Agia Lake North. But we pick up so many for free. Just jump past those guys. Make sure they're not chasing you too aggressively. I've never had a problem with them. Pick up the 2 here. Make sure you get both. If you don't want to worry about this guy that flies in, you can go out to the right side on the hill outside of these stairs and just ride up. And I don't think he ever activates. I think you skip his event box entirely. But that's another area where I never had a problem with that guy. Just keep going full speed, manage your stamina, you'll be fine. Again, more golden seeds, 2 of them at this tree as well. So 2 at the previous one, 2 at this one. I was being cautious and going more to the right side to not activate the field Margit. But you don't really need to do that. You can actually get kind of close to him and he still doesn't even aggro. It's never been an issue, so. Come up and get this battlefield grace. Battleground, battlefield, I forget what it's called.
Okay, let's pop a couple of runes.
I think there's also like a rune 7 or rune 9 out here in the field somewhere nearby. If you want to, you can grab it, but I never felt the need.
Wow, I have way more runes than normal.
I was popping all of the runes that I picked up from those balloons by the lake earlier. So there we are. I just want to emphasize this again. So I got my intelligence to 36. I actually don't remember if I leveled up mind properly to 16 or not, but the goal is to get intelligence. I think 36 is good. And then I would recommend 16 for mind so that you can get an extra cast of Night Comet out of it.
No, that's actually normal.
Do all of your flasks. Increase them all, and then set them all to FP.
No, we're gonna head back to do something.
Because we really don't need to bother with healing. Set up your physic. We use the int. Let's go back and review that real quick. So that's the...
No, we're gonna
See it again.
do something.
No, I did it so fast. But yeah, the intelligence not crystal tier. And then the magic shrouding crack tier. Yeah, it boosts magic damage. So it's very, very effective. Lasts for a long time. Good stuff.
Oh, I'm an idiot. Never mind. Fort Farum.
So I go back to Fort Ferrith because we need to go back through the town of Sellia to get a couple of things. There is a boss fight there. You can do it basically now or you can do it later. I would also make it morning because as we ride down, there is a Deathbird along the way. So make sure it's daytime so you skip that.
Head on down to Sellia, get our revenge, move on.
So you can also see at this point, I have the Carian Glintstone staff in my left hand. I had a misunderstanding for a while. That only boosts Carian sword sorcery. So it only helps with Carian Slicer. It doesn't help any with Glintstone Pebble, as far as I'm aware. So I believe it only helps with sword sorcery, which is Carian Slicer, and nothing else. So you don't actually need this equipped for this spell. There was another Starlight Shard nearby, but we go to Church of the Plague to get another Sacred Tear. And we'll want this Grace for later because we come back to get to Radahn. One thing real quick. When you're exiting this Church of the Plague, do not go out the front doors. There's these 2 guards there, and they can ruin your day. Go out one of the sides, give them some space, stay clear of them. And then when we're riding over here down this road, there's this, one of these magic balls or whatever that appears behind you. I think everybody does it a little bit different, but I've never had problems taking this pathing, and it's very, very simple. Just stay on the left side. And then when you see this light marking, cross the road. Drop down here. Drop down over here. When you're over here, stay on the left side as close to this wall as you can when you're doing this jump. Because there are a couple enemies up on this hill that can reanimate if you get too close to them.
Whoa, no. Get the horse.
When we ride up here, they start reforming.
I don't understand.
So head over to this tree, branch, root, whatever it is. Need to be quick because those reanimating enemies. Don't know if you saw that, but as I was getting set up, one of them shot an arrow at me. So you need to be quick with this, and you need to be careful with those guys. You could kill them if you want to make sure they're not a problem, but just be aware. You cannot be slow here.
I haven't figured that out yet. One of them shot an arrow at me. That's why you got to go fast through there.
You get another golden seed, always good. And we need to light up the 3 sconces or whatever they are here to break the seal in town. That way we get Night Comet, and it also allows us to kill the boss in this area, which gives us Lusat's staff, which we use later in the run. You might be able to find a way to just go through here once without having to warp back constantly. Feel free to try some different stuff out if you want, but the way that I ran through here was nice. Cameras get weird here. Be careful. I put my camera way up high, pointing down at me, to avoid any silliness with camera angles and stuff. Kill this enemy on the rooftop. Yeah, he can jump around like that a little bit, but just kill him. You could probably do it with Magic Glint Blade, but I never bothered figuring out a setup. I just used Pebble because it was pretty convenient. Once you're done breaking the 3 seals in town, put a useless marker on the map and then clear it away, and then warp back to Sellia backstreets.
We need to go grab the pickups.
So we have 2 pickups that we're getting here. One of them is the Staff of Loss, and one of them is Night Comet. What I was doing here was standing on this roof, standing still for like 8 to 10 seconds, because there's a magic guy that's invisible and patrolling down here. And if you wait for 10 seconds, it's enough time that he turns around and patrols away from you. So I would recommend 10 full seconds. Pick up the Staff of Loss. We equip the Staff of Loss in our offhand to give us a boost during
I'm just gonna wait for this.
when we're using Night Comet. I would kill that guy. I think there's maybe some pathing or timing you can take to avoid him entirely. But you need to break the seals before opening that chest. And doing that gives you Night Comet, which is one of the best spells in the run, hands down. You do not need to kill this boss right now. You can come back before Fire Giant and make it even easier on yourself. But I was just doing it because we were here already. However, if you do it this early, it's possible to mess it up, and I'll try and explain what to avoid. So I set up RTSR. We're going to use Magic Glint Blades to make sure you have the proper staff in the offhand. What you want to do is, yeah, you use your physic, use Golden Vow, enter the fight. There's going to be 2 of these enemies. Lock onto one of them and cast Glint Blade 4 times immediately and refill your FP right away. I did not refill my FP, which was foolish. So I only got 3 casts of Glint Blade here. And then I freaked out. But if you properly drink FP in the middle of it, it won't be an issue. But it takes 4 casts of Glint Blade to kill each of them. And then once you're done, you can go and grab Lusats. It's nice to do this early just because you don't have to come back. But it's probably much easier if you do it later. You'll have much more damage. So you can do it now, you can do it later, whatever you feel like. But we are now finally done with setup. It's been an hour, and we can finally go do stuff. This was dumb. I don't know why I increased my intelligence above 36. Do whatever setup works for you, obviously. Especially if you are getting extra levels early. And if you're going to use Night Comet earlier than I am, feel free to do whatever the hell you want, obviously. I should have put that point into mind instead of intelligence. The specific setup that I was going for was 36 intelligence and then 16 mind. And I don't know why, but I screwed it up here. I even went to 38 intelligence. It actually would have... It should have messed something up in the Margit fight, but I got lucky. If you want to do Margit the way that I'm doing it, don't go over 36 intelligence. That's really the key. And then you definitely want Glintblade and Slicer. And I would say you want Pebble as well for running through Stormveil, and we'll switch it out for Night Comet afterward. I also went through my flasks one more time, because I had upgrades to do on them. But with that, we're all set for Stormveil.
Oh, don't do that. Jesus.
Not falling off the cliff is generally a good strat. I almost failed at that, so keep that in mind. It's just a job, but for some reason that guy follows you sometimes. So, if you got to put him out of his misery, then so be it. Get set up with RTSR. Now, one detail is, I believe you actually want to have the wrong staff in your offhand with this setup. This is kind of an odd setup. And that's why I would advise you to feel free to do whatever you want, especially if you get the extra levels early so you can use Night Comet on this fight. But I think you don't want the Glint Blade staff in your left hand. I think you actually don't want the extra damage. Yeah, see, I switch over to Carian Glintstone staff, because if you do too much damage, you'll phase Margit early, and we don't want to do that. So 3 regular casts of Glint Blade if you have 36 intelligence. And then I squeezed in a Slicer punish there. 3 more. He's already almost dead. Roll through phase transition, and 1 or 2 Slicer should do it. If you get extra levels, you can use Night Comet, which makes that fight even easier. You can do like 2 casts of Night Comet, and then just go into Carian Slicer, and you probably kill him before he even phases. So there are different setups you can do. The one that I did here wasn't the best early on, but it eventually just doesn't matter. I don't bother getting the Grace, and we already have our Physic active, so go up and kill Gostock right away. And this was a reminder that as soon as you kill Margit, you probably want to equip Radahn Sword Seal, because you get the second talisman pouch. I forgot to do it right away, but I realized it as soon as I killed Gostock, so make sure you equip it when you feel it's appropriate. And then I have not seen a setup for going through Stormveil Castle quickly, so we go around the slow way. Plenty of damage to kill the bird in 1 hit. Just once a guy turns around, then you're good to head up. You one-shot all of these guys unless they're holding up a shield. And even then, you do a lot of damage to them. I like to run through this castle as quickly as I can because we still have the physic active and 3 minutes is a good amount of time. But, you know, it does expire eventually, so it's nice to run through while that's still active. That's why I keep moving. And basically my goal is to get up here to the room where the key is and kill the guard inside while I still have the physic active. Carian Slicer from behind, you do tons of damage. 2 or 3 hits, he has no chance of killing you. Easy peasy.
Third one just to be safe.
If there were a way to get through by going through the front gate, I would gladly do it. Because it would save some time for sure. But I never found anything with sorcery that worked. So that's something that would be really nice to see if somebody could find a good setup for sorcery to get through the front gate safely.
Cool. Now we can sort of set things up again.
Head up and grab this Grace. At this point, what I would normally do is level up from 36 intelligence to 39. I think you need 38 intelligence to use Night Comet. Let me double check that.
And then I think we replace Glint Blade with that, yeah? Seems to be right. And then...
Yeah, Night Comet requires 38 intelligence to use. So if you're killing the Knight's Cavalry early and getting the 42,000 runes early on, you'll have enough levels to start using Night Comet right away, which honestly I would just go ahead and recommend. It's so nice to use early on. It does so much damage and the enemies don't see the projectile, so they don't dodge it. It's incredibly powerful. So what we were doing was mostly like we didn't have enough levels to use Night Comet early on. That's why we were using Magic Glint Blade. But it was kind of an awkward setup having the wrong staff equipped in our offhand during the Margit fight. So again, do whatever you want. So we're running through. We don't need to bother with the Grace there. We do set up RTSR. You do it now because you have, you know, time while you're waiting for the lift. And obviously be careful when you're setting up RTSR. Like any lift, any elevator should never be trusted in From games. And I've seen weird stuff happen in Elden Ring already, but I felt fine setting it up there. Like I wasn't going to fall off there, so I was fine. We do have to kill a few of these Jarbros. This is just with RTSR and Radahn Source Seal. We don't have the Physic active yet. You actually don't need to kill those 3, from what I've seen. It seems like you can go pick up the 2 cracked pots in the corners without aggroing the 3 pots in the center. They'll just stay asleep as long as nothing's aggroed them or distracted them yet. I grabbed the Kukri because there's a few places where they're very, very useful. But we're already at Godrick. So the plan is to use Night Comet to phase 1. And then once he starts phasing, we still do some damage while he's in the animation. And then we'll switch to Carian Slicer to finish. So I did both the Physic and Golden Vow, and then refilled FP before entering. Keep your distance when you're casting Night Comet, and you shouldn't have any real trouble. Once again, if I had 16 Mind, I would be able to get 4 casts of Night Comet without running out of FP. Don't do too many casts right then. Right when he's doing the cutting off his arm animation, you want to conserve some amount of FP and stamina for phase 2. So at this point, 2 casts were good for Night Comet, but no more. Find whatever's comfortable for you, though. Crouch recovery for stamina. And then Carian Slicer until he's dead. Pretty easy. Warp on back to the Rampart Tower, and we're going to make our way over to the Divine Tower.
Oh, I didn't actually have the rune equipped, or the gesture equipped. Well, that sucks.
Yeah, I wanted to have the snap gesture, just because it's cheesy, and that's perfect for me. I ended up not using it until the end, and it doesn't obviously matter at all, but since it was Thanos, it was just, like, perfect to have that gesture. If you hop on top of a prop like that and don't touch it from the side, you won't break it. That's why you can get on top of certain items in the game. Certain, like, pots, like the clay pots and the wooden boxes. If you approach them from the side and hit them from the side while you're jumping, you'll break it. It's nice to kill these guys in that specific order, just because this guy turns around and doesn't see you right away. And it takes 2 hits to kill him, so it's really, really nice.
I don't really understand the aggro range of this guy, so I think that's good.
Switch out for the stamina recovery talisman. You probably don't even need it, honestly. But
Why is something still aggro to me?
it's nice to have.
Hey, Noxy, yeah, we finally got past setup.
So yeah, we're just heading out to get Godrick's rune.
Don't know why something was still aggro to me that whole time. That really sucks. I guess it's okay. We're still able to do fine with stamina here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what got me last time. It was a combination of just silly mistakes on my part, so the fight is really much simpler than I was making it out to be. But that's okay, we got through it this time.
Pretty easy to dodge the arrow from that guy. You just let the terrain block it for you.
I think Team Hitless might look,
And then you can run right by him, no problem.
all of a sudden half the enemies are gone. Little suspicious. Would be pretty awesome though. That is specifically why I take the time with Thanos to go get the snap gesture, the finger snap gesture, just because it works so well.
Good time to do some inventory management whenever you're on these giant lifts,
We're gonna
if you need to.
helmet, and then that gets replaced with Glint Blade. That will be our next setup for.
So in terms of what we're going to be doing next, well, this maybe isn't the best time to say it in the guide. I'll wait until we get to the next area.
However you say his name, to drop down, but you just get it by talking to Caelid, or however you say his name.
From here, we're going to go kill Radahn, will be our next shard bearer. And then we're good to head into Leyndell, and everything is pretty linear from there. So we head back to Church of the Plague.
You don't have to go see Blythe though. Like I went and just rode through the Mistwood area.
And we're going to make our way south.
That was enough. I'm an idiot. That was enough.
I don't know why I accidentally used my physic there.
Prompt. I'm not sure exactly what causes it. But yeah, as long as you've been in Mistwood.
For whatever reason, I was doing my leveling and activating the Great Rune at the next grace. You could have done it right there, though, if you wanted to.
I remember getting that gesture, and I remember the dialogue that said something about.
Doesn't really matter. You just do it wherever is comfortable.
And I totally forgot about it because I don't know. I got sidetracked with exploring or something like that in my first playthrough, so I never ended up getting that encounter.
And then this can be a little bit awkward when you're riding over here on the horse. So make sure you find a good marker for where it's safe to drop down. What I was doing was coming over here and I was looking for this right here. this little bundle of, or no, sorry, it's this right here. These little things that stick out, not the regular tree, but these like lighter colored ones. I was looking for those. That's where I should be dropping down now. For whatever reason, I got confused here, but that's my marker where I drop down. But find a safe spot for you and just make sure it's consistent. I got lost for some reason here.
And then there's the tree roots.
And then again, if you go look at how other people are riding through here to get to Radahn, there are different ways of going through there. Jumping onto that tree route, I've never had a problem with it. But I suppose it's possible to mess it up and die. So, you know, feel free to take a look at ways other people go through here. The only thing that we're doing is getting down to the portal at the bridge that warps us across to the Castle of Redmanes. So it doesn't really matter how you get there as long as you get there safely. One thing I will note is that right here is a body that has 6 mushrooms on it. So if you want a really good mushroom pickup, that right there is super convenient. I didn't know about that until after this run, but you could see that item in the tent.
Okay, well, let's get ready for Radahn.
If you had leveled up and activated the Grace and attuned the correct spells and whatnot, you wouldn't even need this Grace. We don't use it for anything else, so really, sitting here and resting and whatnot is unnecessary. But right now we level up Intelligence to 45. Make sure that you have Glintblade and Carian Slicer. That's what we're going to be using on Radahn. Once you have the Great Rune equipped, you should have enough attributes to carry both the dagger and the short sword without going to medium equip load. So feel free to keep those in your inventory if you like it that way. You know, everybody has a different way of managing their inventory, but you should be able to keep both equipped with no trouble at this point. So activate the fight. Grab a Somber 5 from over here. We already got a 1 and 4, and we'll buy number 2 and 3, and then we'll pick up 6, 7, and 8, and 9 along the way. And then you get number 10 in Farum Azula. You'll want to set up RTSR before the fight. And then we're going to drink the Physic before we activate the portal. But we don't use Golden Vow until we're in the fight. You'll see when we use it. And I'll try and explain how to do it properly. I think I may have messed it up in this run, but it still worked out. So there's a bit of forgiveness on it, even if you don't do it perfectly. And you may be able to find different setups. But I think Glintblade is really good here because of the delay between when you cast and when the projectile hits. It gives you some time to recover stamina and FP before getting set up for the next attacks. And that's something that Night Comet doesn't provide you. So this is our setup. We need Meteorite Staff, and you want both Glintblade and Glintstone staffs equipped. We're going to be switching between them in the fight. And then you need RTSR and Radahn Sword Seal.
He phased early last time, and I don't understand why that would have been. I don't know. We'll just maintain distance. Maybe it was something I did, but I'll have to go back and look later.
And then I know right at the beginning of the fight, some people will get on Torrent right away and start riding backwards, and you despawn Radahn even sooner, so you don't have to deal with this arrow. But the particular setup that I was doing worked every single time, but it was based on like timing and position, so I insisted on keeping this in the any percent. If you figure out a better setup, feel free to do it how you want. But basically what you want to do, it's a little odd to explain, but Radahn can do a number of different opening attacks, but from my experience, and this is just me, it feels like with the proper timing and managing your distance, you'll get the exact same opener every single time. I don't know that that's really true. That's just what I feel from it. But basically what you want to do, it's a little odd to explain, but Radahn can do a number of different opening attacks, but from my experience, and this is just me, it feels like with the proper timing and managing your distance, you'll get the exact same opener every single time. I don't know that that's really true. That's just what I feel from it. But the goal is to be able to cast Magic Glint Blade 5 times. So you cast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you back off because you'll run out of stamina. We do that 3 times. You're going to do 5 casts of Glint Blade, recover stamina. Another 5 casts, recover stamina, refill FP. Another 5 casts of Glint Blade, switch over to Carian Slicer, roll through the AoE, get behind and punish until he's dead. That's the idea. But sometimes you can't get that third set of Glint Blade off. So practice this quite a bit. See if you can figure out the right timing and spacing to get this consistent. And let's see how it plays out in this run. I actually don't remember. I was trying to use visual markers on the ground. There's this skull that sticks out of the sand. And I think I was using that as like a marker once I hop off the horse, cast Golden Vow, refill FP, and then start running up. I think I was using this as my visual marker for when I want to start casting. And as I'm casting, I start backing up. Yeah, see, we got the perfect opener. Stamina's good. We keep going. You clear this attack. Refill FP. Do another 5 casts. Switch to Carian Slicer. Roll through. Get behind and punish. And look at that. He didn't even get anywhere near phase 2. Obliterated.
That's how it should go.
We don't pop the gold pickled Foulfoot until Morgott. You could use it now if you wanted to. That's not a bad call. You could do it either way. But I think Morgott was a bit more effective. At this point, do not forget to go back to the roundtable hold and talk to whatever it is, the I don't know, the NPC that's by the 2 fingers, because she'll give you a 3rd talisman pouch. So don't forget to do that right now. I was switching my spells around because we'll want Glint Blade, Carian Slicer, and Night Comet as we're going through Leyndell. So I like to go ahead and get that set up now. So make sure to get your 3rd talisman pouch and equip a talisman in it. I had many times where I would get the talisman pouch and then completely forget to equip anything in it. So make sure you're using everything that you acquire. So now we head back to Altus Plateau, and we're going to make our way to Leyndell.
Let me get my notes ready for this next bit. These ghostly, like, flags or whatever that seem to be spread around, like, battlefields especially, those are really cool. Like, it's just a very nice little thing to add some atmosphere.
I went over to the side here, and we go down through this canyon or whatever, and we turn around and hop up a spirit spring. If you want to, you can go right out through the field, but it seems like you're taking your chances with the stone archers out there. Unless there's a really good path figured out over there, I would say that this is much, much safer. And it doesn't even really cost a lot of time, like maybe 30 seconds or something like that. You do need to be careful, though. When you're hopping up here, I am not really keeping him well in sight. There's this archer right here. There's another one off to the left somewhere. I don't know if this is where he's at or if he's further over to the left off screen. But depending on how well you rode through all of this, the one on the far left could be aggroed to you. So keep an eye open for that and make sure that he's not aggroed and turning around to you. You can see this one right here fired an arrow like right down to the ground. So you still need to be a bit careful in this area. And then when you're riding through the field up here, make sure you don't get close enough to accidentally aggro the Sentinel early.
Just ordered sushi. Nice.
Set up RTSR. You could do this earlier if you wanted to, but anytime that I'm on the horse, you know, I don't like to have RTSR in case I accidentally take fall damage somewhere.
Awesome. Look at that.
Fantastic leg. That was happening during that run. So the idea here, this is something that we haven't really gone through yet, but if you're new to sorcery, or even just in Elden Ring, there's charged casting, which is new to the series. So instead of just straight up casting a spell, certain spells you can hold down the button and charge up the cast. It'll take longer to cast it, and it does more damage. It doesn't cost any extra FP to do a charged cast, but I'm not 100% sure if it takes more stamina or not. I think it does take more stamina, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I could be wrong. But what we're going to do on this is we're going to drink our flask, use Golden Vow. We're going to do 2 charge casts of Glintblade, then 6 regular casts of Glintblade immediately after that. We just keep going. So you do 2 charged, 6 regular, switch to your Carian Slicer setup. Optionally, you could refill FP if you feel the need to, but I don't think you'll need to with this setup. And then you run up, and once you have stamina, you Carian Slicer until he's dead. So that's how it should play out.
Glintblade into Slicer. Shouldn't be any real problems.
So drink the Physic, use Golden Vow, refill FP, and then 2 charge casts into 6 regular casts. I only did 5 there. I kind of messed up. We still had enough damage to kill him here, but just be aware. And then what I'd recommend doing, if you don't already know about this, go ahead and grab this Grace, because if you grab the next Grace, there's an automatic interaction with Melina, and it just takes more time. So at this point, I level Intelligence to 60. I would recommend that for the upcoming area. 60 feels like a pretty good spot here. Obviously, do whatever, you know, you find best. But I think 60 is pretty good for all of this next section. And I specifically like to stop leveling. Like, I'll level it up to 65 before we get to Morgott. And then it allows Morgott to play out in a very specific way. It's another fight where you could probably find a better, more consistent, and simpler setup. But I just went with what I knew, and it works well every single time. I never had problems with it, so I'll let you know what that is like when we get to the Morgott fight. But he just rested that previous Grace to make sure that you do any leveling that you need to, and to switch out spells if you haven't already. However, you do want to grab this next Grace. You just don't want to rest at it, because that'll waste time with Melina talking to you. But we want that Grace so we can warp back here after Morgott. Parkour. If you don't know about this, swinging the weapon in the air typically gives a faster recovery animation when you land on the ground. It just saves a little bit of time. It's not as annoying as a hard landing. And then I go ahead and set up RTSR now. You don't have to. You can do it later if you want. Be careful with the parkour here. It's very annoying if you fall down. So that jump right there is the toughest one. You want to jump as late as you can. There is a golden rune 12 right here. You have to be careful when you approach it to make sure you can pick it up without falling off the roof. But it's a pretty nice pickup if you want to. I didn't realize that at the point when I was doing this run, so that's why I wasn't getting it. But if you want to, feel free. Sneak up behind this guy. I mean, you can get right up next to him. I feel like I touched him sometimes, and he didn't even notice me. Golden Rune 9 is a nice pickup there for free. If you're at nighttime, I think this guy definitely won't notice you when you're doing this. And then, you know, some people like to jump up the wings. I don't know. I just like to keep it simple. You can pick up a rune arc there. I mean, you don't need to. You need one for your run. So it's just like extra for practice and whatnot. If you're doing, you know, no reset runs and you're not using no death or anything like that, you can pick that one up so that you can continue if you die anyway. That's a golden rune 11 right there. If you want to pick it up, you can. Just be careful with the enemy behind you. I mean, with our setup, you could turn around and kill him for free anyway. And then just pick it up. But I guess I'm just showing that you don't need to. Like, I wasn't picking it up at this point when I was doing this run. So you don't need to if you don't want to. We were using our physic early here because it lasts for 3 minutes anyway, which is plenty of time. And then I refilled FP as well. But just because some of these enemies on the branches will chase you, you know, once you get into the arena, you don't really want to be dealing with this stuff. Those enemies can get right up to the fog gate and try attacking you anyway. So I'd just go ahead and recommend it. With this setup, it's fine. Just go ahead and use it early and run. If you want to, though, you can wait until you're all the way up here, but you're not gonna need that. Now, Goldfrey is a little weird because, you know, like with so many bosses and enemies in this game, they can input read and have super quick reactions to your attacks. So I'm just going to use Night Comet. That's why we have Staff of Loss in our left hand. Staff of Loss, for what it's worth, gives plus 30% to invisibility spells, of which there are only 2 anyhow. There's Night Shard and Night Comet. But that's a huge boost right there. Plus 30% damage to a spell that's already pretty strong, and the enemies don't dodge the projectiles. That's massive. So make sure you're getting this bonus. But when you're casting this at Goldfrey, it's not the quickest casting spell in the world, Night Comet. So what you can do is you can just keep on casting over and over again, as long as you're being very careful to watch for what he does in response to your attack. So like every single time that I'm casting, I'm waiting a very tiny fraction of time to see if he's reacting at all. And if not, then I queue up the next cast. So if you do it right, you can just keep spamming like this, but you need to watch out for his reactions. Get far enough away that he won't be a threat, refill FP, and just keep going. If you keep enough distance, he won't be able to attack you anyhow, because you're too far away. But it's pretty straightforward. You get your final talisman pouch. We won't be able to make use of it until we're up in the snowy mountaintops. But we want to run up to the Black Knife Assassin and kill her while we still have the physic active. Again, it's good for 3 minutes, plenty of time, but I just like to be prompt about it. We just go. No stalling, no delaying, no forgetting about it and screwing things up. Use Magic Glint Blade. We do 2 charge casts into 5 normal casts. You can get a little bit closer if you want. Be careful, though, because the assassin can still do the... I forget what the attack is called, but it's the one where that knife launches the projectile at you, and you sometimes need to dodge it. The projectile can get started, and so you sometimes need to be ready to dodge that. So also be careful with your positioning on that walkway there. Make sure that you have room to roll if you need to, and that your vision isn't blocked by the glint blade that you just cast. Apparently, when I was going to Morgott, maybe I was only doing 60 and 20. 60 and 20 might have been right. I think I wasn't going to 65 until later. Yeah, I may have misspoke earlier. So 60 and 20 before we go to Morgott.
Should be fine on spells. There shouldn't be anything else we need to do.
So the idea is we're going to use RTSR, Drink the Physic. We are not going to use Golden Vow. And we are going to have Carian Slicer with the appropriate staff in the offhand. You're going to bait out the spear attack. And then once, Morgott can do a number of different follow-ups after that. You want the one where he jumps up in the air and then lands on the ground. And we're going to do 3 attacks with Carian Slicer, back up, and then we're going to get the same scenario where you bait out the spear attack, get under him when he jumps in the air, and then you're going to punish him 5 times into phase transition. So spear attack, dodge. Yeah, sometimes you can get close. So roll away, manage your, spacing and whatnot, get away. A good moderate distance like this will bait out the spear attack. That's the jump attack you want to punish. We do 3 times. So I'm doing 1900 damage here. And that is not enough damage to phase him just yet. I don't think it's to phase him. I think it avoids the golden, whatever it is, where he summons the raining swords from the sky. I think that's the attack that we're trying to force out. So we're doing a setup where we do some setup damage, and then we punish him, and that phases him. And then after he phases, then he goes and does that sword rain attack. And because it's so slow, we have enough time to use Night Comet to kill him and finish him. So we've done 3 to start. This should be the next 5. 5, boom, he phases. Refill FP and switch to Night Comet setup. Make sure that the geysers or whatever of Barf, or whatever this stuff is, don't spawn around here so you're safe. Cast Night Comet and refill. Cast Night Comet and kill. I like that. And then pop the gold foot so you get the extra runes. You can pop the remembrance right away.
Very nice. No problems at all. Very nice.
And that's Morgott. Easy peasy. So now we're able to do a bit more leveling. For multiple reasons, I would stop leveling intelligence at 69. Obviously, nice, but it allows for a very specific quick kill on Hoarah Loux, if things play out correctly. But if you don't have that much intelligence, and if you have too much, you can do damage too early. And if you don't have enough damage, then you won't be able to do it correctly. So I was getting up to 69 specifically. You don't have to do that. However, you want to conserve some runes because you're going to need to take runes over to EG, and you need enough to level up the staff that we're going to have, which is not cheap because we need to buy some Somber Stones over there anyhow, and we need enough runes to be able to level up. So if you're going through Leyndell, it's not a bad idea to pick up the Golden Rune 12, 9, and 11 that we pass along the way if you want that extra cushion to make sure that you're going to have enough runes when we get to EG. So just manage your runes properly. I guess what I was doing here, I wasn't certain about it, but you don't need to get to 69 intelligence right away. It doesn't make a difference on Fire Giant, and it doesn't make a difference on Godskin Duo. And as long as you don't do too much damage on Maliketh, you'll be able to phase him at a good time.
What do we have? We have Fire Giant. We already killed the Nox.
So just try and manage your levels.
Plenty of damage.
Don't go too much too fast.
Okay, we'll just do it this way.
It's good to have a balance of intelligence in mind, but basically at this point,
Oh.
do the run a couple of times and figure out what works for you. But those were the levels that I was roughly going with, somewhere around 65
Never mind.
intelligence now, and then a few levels in mind as well, just for that extra safety. But eventually I never leveled above 69 intelligence throughout the entire run, just because it worked out perfectly for me.
I'm supposed to conserve some runes after Morgott because we'll need them when we go back to EG to upgrade. But I don't think it'll be a problem. Night Comets.
Head back to the East Capital Rampart. We're going to make our way down
Continue.
and head over to the road lift.
Shenanigans this time.
We'll make our way out into the, Forbidden Lands and the snowy mountaintops and all that. Setting up RTSR here is nice just because it makes sure that we do some extra damage. We need to kill some of the enemies in this area, and we kill the scarab that transforms into the larger scarab so that we can get Somber 6. So having the extra damage from RTSR, and I went ahead and popped the flask, the physic, allows for extra damage, and we have plenty of time to get what we need here. But you just use Night Comet for so much at this point. It's just such an amazing spell.
I don't think it really matters if we sneak like this. And we have plenty of time to kill this enemy, so it's never been a problem.
Sneak up on this guy. Make sure you don't aggro him. Easy peasy, kill him. You can kill all of these enemies. They'll die in one cast of Night Comet each. There might be one enemy that takes 2 casts, but I've never had a problem with it, because you can get this Exalted Flesh. I don't think I ever used an Exalted Flesh in my entire run. So it increases physical damage, which Rock Sling definitely does. Oh, apparently I was getting it in my run at this point. Actually, I think I was just killing these guys because I took a hit from one of these guys once. I didn't bother getting the Exalted Flesh, but that guy right there can be annoying sometimes. Yeah, if he holds up his shield, it can take 2 casts to kill him. It was kind of silly to not pick up the Exalted Flesh. It actually could have only helped.
Distance PB of the day.
So you can pick it up because certain spells will do physical damage, which is what Exalted Flesh buffs. Rock Sling is all physical damage. I don't think you do any magic damage with Rock Sling. And if I remember correctly, I think Carian Slicer actually does some physical damage as well. I could be wrong on that. I'm trying to look it up right now.
Didn't think I would.
I might be wrong on that. It looks like Carian Slicer does not cast any physical damage. I don't know why I thought that for some reason. You literally summon a sword out of nowhere. There's nothing physical. But for some reason, I had it in my head that there might have been some physical damage involved with that. That line that I just took there, in that same timing with the knight on the horse, I never have a problem with that guy. So feel free to look at that again to see the timing and the line I took. Never, ever had a problem doing that.
Good.
So yeah, kill the scarab quickly. Somber 6. You could probably kill the knight on the horse with Night Comet, now that I think about it. But there's no need.
Let's see. Gyobu
And there is another knight in the area
and Genichiro.
that's turned away and like looking out. So you could potentially aggro that enemy if you do anything in that area. So It's super easy to sneak by that guy. I would just recommend doing it that way.
Pretty much saying it as it happened. Like, you know you can get it from that hop, right? Like, I wasn't typing it. I was saying it out loud to myself, just like, oh, he's going to get hit from this shit someday. I mean, whatever. Everybody's got to have learning hits. It is what it is. I've had many gravity deaths recently.
You want to make sure that you go through this area at daytime because there's a Knight's Cavalry that can spawn here. I didn't mention it, but once we kill Morgott, I always turn it to morning to make sure that once we get out here, I don't need to rest at a grace and change it to morning again. So it's good to do that right away after Morgott, once you're done leveling and whatnot. Make sure you go around the right side of this tree. If you go around the left side, there are poison traps. You can probably find a line through there that's safe, but going around the right side, even though it's a little awkward with the terrain and collision over there, it's still safer. Along the way up here, we're going to pick up a golden seed on this tree. There is a somber 7, I believe, in this giant, wherever it is. There's like a giant skull around, and you can get into the mouth and pick up the somber 7 there. But we get another one for free in a minute anyhow, so there's really no trouble. I wouldn't get the one here because there are some enemies that can follow you. And the other one is free as long as you pay attention to something, which I'll make sure to point out. This guy is annoying, though. I've seen at least one person get hit by his projectile attack, and I've seen the projectile attack get close to me. So be careful when you approach this area. Make sure you're running through here quickly without depleting your stamina. Yeah, that right there, it almost got me.
Please no.
So make sure you can get through quickly.
Oh my god, that was close. Yeah, we're still hitless finally. We actually have a distance speed.
If you're doing all remembrances, it's good to pick up the Zamor Ruins Grace, because you'll need to come back to the Ruled Lift. But you don't need it in the any percent, you can just move on.
If everything goes fine with Fire Giants, then Farum Azula is just the next big roadblock. We've lost.
There's not really much going on. If you've watched runs, you know that this is typically a pretty slow area. So you'll need to see right here, we get the Somber 7. Just make sure that when you're approaching over here, that you're not over too far to the left when you pass these rocks. If you're too far to the left, it's possible to aggro an eagle, and it can come over and ruin your day. I actually got kind of close here. I really should have been more careful about it, but you want to make sure that you don't... I think it's over on this level where we're at right now. If you get too far back and to the left, it's possible to aggro a bird, and, you know, birds are amazing enemies in this game. This is the Scarab for the Somber 7.
Yes, we are still hitless, which is very nice.
Maybe it's not on this level. Yeah, there's the bird right there. So when you're up on that high platform, you want to make sure to drop down early enough that you don't get close to the eagle and aggro him. That's the issue.
But it is totally awesome.
There are plenty of ways of dealing with this guy right in front of the bridge. Some people just stop right behind him and get him to turn around, but the kukri also works really well. I don't know if you saw that kukri throw there, but you can go take a look. I forget who came up with that, but obviously those throwing knives, not the throwing knives, but the kukri, are like insanely overpowered in this game. So make some good use of them here and there. Just don't be slow here. Shouldn't get hit by the arrow.
When the run is fast like that. That's really cool, man. I like that. Are you following anybody's guide in particular? Or are you just like pulling up?
But if you need to, wait until it's clear. And then, yeah, for those who don't know, I've seen a couple of people get hit in the back by that archer, so make sure you're being mindful. Use your surroundings to protect you, listen for arrow shots, figure out good timing.
Just wanted to be careful.
This is Somber 8, another Scarab. Around the corner is another Trina's Lily that you can get as well if you're in need of another one.
Make sure to rest at this grace.
You want to grab this grace.
Because I take fall damage.
We need it.
Yeah, Elden Ring is 54 minutes per
We have to make a little side trip and then come back here before we can continue.
I gotta think for a second. We don't kill anything, do we? No, we're fine.
I'm not sure what I needed to do there, but
We're good to go.
I just don't want to fast forward through anything in this run. I want to make sure that I don't forget any details.
Think it's the only one.
And obviously, if you want to, at any point, you can skip through things as you please.
Any interest in them? For a hit list? You were sent a video of someone's run by a runner, and you see some strats. Nice.
So we are going up to pick up Somber 9. We're going up to pick up another talisman. And that's a side trip that we need to make here. And then also, if you're doing all remembrances, you can head up this way to run over to Castle Sol and get the Grace early.
I go out of my way to get the finger snap.
Or if you go through there right away, obviously you can go through there right away too. But typically you're not going to grab that. You're not going to go there right now. You're going to come back with better upgrades and levels and stuff like that. I'll just mention this as well. There was one day where, oh, actually, I think it was during this run. Yeah. So my game froze here after a moment, and you could see these enemies basically T-posing instead of sitting in their normal animation. So if you notice enemies out of place and doing things where they're, doing things out of the ordinary, it may be a sign that your game's about to crash. I was going for like 6 hours this day, and it's not uncommon if you're running the game for that long in one sitting that the game will eventually crash. And then, yeah, it crashed here.
I think my game might crash here. Yeah, my game.
Yeah, let's go ahead and skip forward through the crashing and get back into it, though. Okay, so we reloaded the save file, and that was the last point where it saved me. And you can see now, this body is sitting in the chair instead of T-posing or whatever it was. And if you actually go back and look, it was clipping through the chair, so it was in a really awkward spot. And then, yeah, this enemy's dead on the ground, so if you notice enemies doing odd things, just be aware.
All right, the other thing to double check and make sure.
And then this is another thing. Once the game crashes, just double check your inventory if you were doing anything recently. Make sure that you didn't miss out on anything.
We should be good. Okay, it looks like we're okay. I've heard of this happening.
You head over to the jellyfish and summon the jellyfish sister.
Apparently, if it's been running for like 6 hours or so, which it definitely has, it's pretty prone to crashing.
I actually forget the name of this talisman,
What I've heard. I'm honestly not surprised.
but it reduces the FP cost of spells.
Thanks, Barbecue. Appreciate it.
Primal Glintstone Blade.
Your PB3. Insane.
Make sure that you equip that right now. Like, stop what you're doing when you pick that up and equip it right away, because I cannot tell you how many times I would pick that up and forget to equip it. Use it, or, there's no point in picking it up. So don't forget. So at this point, we have all the upgrades we need to go to +9 on Lusats, which we already got. If you chose to not fight the Nox duo early in Sellia, you can go back now, fight them, get Lusats.
Damn, just barely.
But we now use Lusats throughout the rest of the run. It does great damage, but it also consumes more FP per cast. So having Primal Glintstone Blade and that staff equipped sort of balance each other out. And that's why you needed that Mountaintop of the Giants Grace, the Snowy Mountaintop Pass or whatever it's called. Because once we do all that, now we're able to resume and head up to Fire Giant. But again, when you're going to EG, make sure you have enough runes to do everything you need. You needed to... I actually didn't cover that very well, so let me go back and make sure that I emphasize what was going on here. When you're talking to EG, you need to make sure to purchase any remaining smithing stones, which we already picked up 1, and the 4 was nearby. So if you need to conserve, oh, it's 6,000 runes that you conserve by doing that. Nice. You need to purchase 2 and 3 unless you find another place to get them, but 7,000 runes isn't bad at this point in the game. So you purchase 2 and 3, obviously 4 if you need it. Then you go and do the upgrades. That's why you need extra runes at this point. Just wanted to reiterate that. Let's head back. I think we were about here. So this is all pretty standard. If you haven't already, this is an area where you can probably fast forward or skip through it and see the route because it's the same in pretty much every run. I did this thing where I was running out in kind of into the middle of the lake. I found that the dragon would spawn more out in the center of the lake and would be clear off. This right side would be clear. It's just a minor thing, but it helped prevent any nonsense with me getting confused and disoriented because of the location of the dragon. So, force him to spawn, get past him. No big deal. Don't get close to the lobsters on the right over there. That could ruin your day. There's another sacred tier that you can pick up here. At this point, you probably don't even need it. But if you're doing all remembrances, you'll want to pick it up. I think it's still worth picking up in the any percent anyhow. Although, we may not even literally get enough FP during this run to actually make use of all the crystal tiers, so it might be possible for you to cut one out and save a little bit of time. We don't need to worry about pickups at those coffins. Just head over to the Spirit Spring. Watch out for collision on those trees. You can kind of get stuck on them, but it shouldn't cause any problems with fall damage. Well, I haven't seen that, but don't, take my word for that. That's just from my experience. There's a Golden Rune 8 that you can pick up when we're riding through here. I think I pick it up here, but you don't need to. I mean, I think I just showed off that it was possible to. Right there on that tree.
Wait, wrong way.
Make sure you go the correct way and don't run off a cliff to your death or anything like that. And then you can just ride up to the Grace. You probably don't even need the Grace in front of Fire Giant. Like, with this setup, it's pretty reliable to just go in and kill him. I don't think I've ever had a situation in Sorcery where I felt the need to bone out of the fight and return. And even if you did, it wouldn't really change anything. Like, the second time you go in to fight him should play out the same. You don't need a super specific position in the arena. Like, it doesn't really work that way. So it's whatever. If you do need to bone out of Fire Giant, that's fine. That's basically what I'm getting at. It's good to grab this Grace if you think you're going to need to bone out sometime. But I never had a situation where I saw the need for it. Not with Sorcery, that is. However, you do need the right spells equipped. All we're going to use is Carian Slicer and Rock Sling. So you use Carian Slicer to break the splint on his ankle, or whatever it is. And then you punish the hell out of his foot while he's got that recovery animation going on. And you should be able to phase him right there. If you need to follow him a little bit afterward, get in position and punish again, then so be it. And then the beginning of phase 2, you usually have enough time to refill FP, get Rocksling set up equipped, and do the punish. I'll try and explain how it works because it is a little bit specific. So I'll pause and review things as we need to.
Oh, it's this guy. All right.
Set up our TSR. We're going to use the Physic and Golden Vow.
Yeah, it's like a good idea for a fight, right? Just really, really bad execution here. All right, let me think about this for a moment. So we use Carian Slicer, we break his heel.
I'm just reviewing it and hyping myself up before the fight. So, you know, that's one thing that is like kind of different about running Magic is remembering your specific setup. It's different in every fight. It's not like I just have melee and I do melee during the fight. Not to say that it's that simple necessarily, but it's good to just, you know, review and make sure you know exactly what's going to happen beforehand, because I have gone into fights and then forgotten the strat in the middle of the fight because I wasn't prepared. So, but yeah, Physic, Golden Vow, refill FP, get your Carian Slicer set up ready. You're also going to have the Meteorite Staff equipped in your left hand when you use Rocksling, so already have that equipped in your slots. Yeah, that was pretty bad right there. You need to break it in 2. It doesn't really matter how long this goes on for, as long as you don't get the stupid fire spells and whatnot. Like, you're not going to have to worry about that much. Punish the hell out of his foot. There is a weak spot back there, so make sure you're hitting the correct spot on, like, the back of his heel. I got blocked by the tree there. That's why I wasn't able to phase him. Wonderful arena. Wonderful boss design. 10 out of 10. So if this happens, not a big deal. You just run up and then punish him into phase transition. Refill FP if you need to. I was already good. Now, what I did was a little bit specific, but we're going to cast Rocksling 3 times, possibly 4, because he doesn't always stagger on the 3rd time. Sometimes it's the 4th. Once you see the stagger, switch to Carian Slicer, hit him in the head and kill him. Boom. But let me go back and review something here. What I'm doing, like, I already drank FP before phase transition. If you feel the need to, you should have enough time to drink FP. Like, as soon as you end the cutscene, drink it immediately. And you're going to switch your spell, you're going to switch your staff. And then I'm looking for a specific timing for when I start casting Rocksling. What I'm looking for, you know, his hands are on fire. There's a good visual sign to use. I'm looking for them to line up with his eye. Basically like this. Something like this is when I'm going to start casting. When the fiery hands are like vertically lined up with the eyeball. You can see that's right when I start casting. And I found that to be pretty consistent for doing 3 casts of Rocksling and getting a stagger. It doesn't always happen, so feel free to experiment and try different things to see if you can find a more consistent setup. But that's what I was doing. And then, like, if the worst thing happens and you have god-awful stamina management and you didn't refill your FP or something like that, you can't stick around in phase 2. It's not a bad idea to maybe have Night Comet or something equipped as a 3rd spell and be ready to cast that if you want to finish the kill. But practice that scripted kill. The scripted part of phase 2 is fairly consistent, but it does have a little bit of tight execution to get it right. So it's a good fight to practice quite a bit. Up here, just make sure to level up and equip the appropriate spells for Farum Azula, which we'll review in a second. But I think at this point is when I level up to 69 intelligence and I keep it there for the rest of the run. And then at this point, once I'm at 69 intelligence, everything else goes into mind after this. Those are the only 2 stats that we need to worry about. If you're doing all remembrances, you'll eventually maybe want to start leveling dexterity for increased casting speed and endurance for the extra stamina, because Night Comet is expensive when it comes to FP and stamina. So it's good to have that extra buffer.
how am I gonna do this?
I took really horrible notes when I was doing this run, so I was not confident in my leveling at all. But I did remember in practice that I was getting up to 69 intelligence. So I would recommend having some good notes ready, because the specific setups and spells and execution, it's a lot to remember. So do whatever you need to do to be prepared.
Let me double check and make sure.
And then Sin with Melina.
Yeah, seems good. Let's commit a cardinal sin. Let's commit a sin, baby. Sorry, I just had to. Like, it's just such a silly, awkward thing, but had to do it. All right. We do need to set up RTSR.
Once you're in Farum Azula, the Beastmen at the beginning, if you have RTSR and you have the Physic active, you can one-shot them with Night Comet. So it's worth getting that set up. Just another reminder, make sure that you've got all your talismans equipped at the right times. Make sure that you're not forgetting anything in your inventory. It's kind of odd. Like, even in the previous games, obviously you had to manage rings and stuff like that. But it's just a lot to remember in this game, like I was saying a moment ago. So, you know, it's a good thing to double check your inventory from time to time. You can also do a charge cast for more damage. I think a charge cast would do a little bit over 2,200 damage. But even with these specs, stats and everything, attributes, we're able to one-shot them with a regular R1. So you don't need to do a charged R1 if you don't want to. And obviously, depending on whatever leveling you're doing up to this point, you know, it may be different for you. So make sure you know what your options are. Pretty standard running through Farum Azula. There's really nothing that we need to pick up along the way. Before you get to Godskin Duo, you need to make sure to craft these sleeping pots. We can do that at the next grace that we rest at, so just mention it now. But with the Physic active, with RTSR, we don't take any fall damage through here. We can run through this whole area. There's no need to pick any of these graces if you don't want to. If you want to rest and heal up, that's fine. If you're concerned about fall damage in some places, that's fine too. Yeah, see, a charge cast did 2,208 damage. So, pretty big boost. I know there's different ways of running through that room. And I've seen those enemies aggro in weird ways, so another area where you can see what other runners do and find what's good for you. What I started realizing when I'm running through here, I should two-hand my dagger and do the blocking thing that prevents the baby jumps. If you're not familiar with that, there's like baby jumps similar to DS2, where you don't jump quite as far as a normal jump, but you can prevent that from happening by blocking. I can't block with it just in my one-handing the dagger, but if I was two-handing it, I could block as I'm running through here. But what I did there was something that I learned from Croaks. You can just run over this gap right here, and then you can jump. So there are different options with running through there. I never found anything good with distracting them with Kukri or even trying to kill those enemies with sorcery, because some of them have bows and arrows or crossbows or whatever. But you may be able to find something even a little safer. The only spells you're going to need for the Godskin duo are Glintblade and Carian Slicer. But you want Night Comet equipped, because we're going to use that right afterward. We're going to keep going and not rest. So do your crafting and get your sleeping pots. You saw that I crafted soft cotton, even though we don't use it in the run because I was still kind of like pseudo experimenting with it in practice. Yeah, obviously make sure your sleep pots are equipped. And then make sure that you have the appropriate spells in your offhand. That's why I took the time to do that right now, before I would forget later. Getting into the arena and getting focused and forgetting that I didn't have the right setup. Imagine doing that. All right, this is a cool little setup. Again, I think I said it earlier, and I could be mistaken, but from what I understand, Couch Joggy found this setup. I was using mouse and keyboard to help be a little bit more precise with it, but I'm basically getting my feet in between these bones and lined up with this stone. This is an area where, if you're doing a specific lineup and you have mouse and keyboard, I would recommend using mouse and keyboard because it helps you get lined up perfectly. If you're playing on console and don't have access to, you know, like a keyboard to connect to it, that's where the telescope comes into play. You would position yourself, even though I'm not angled correctly. At this point, once you're lined up like this, you would use the telescope and it would zoom in and it would line up your body the same way that I'm doing with mouse and keyboard, where I just, like with mouse and keyboard, I just take one step back, one step forward. So it's just S and W to get lined up. You turn around and then turn forward. And that way you're lined up the way that your camera is pointing. But if you have the telescope equipped, this is where you would use it to get the proper lineup. So just making you aware of that. What I was doing, though, once I had my position, I would try and line up my head below this dragon's eye, or whatever this is. You can find what works for you. You can also do the other strat where you run in and you throw it right away, like the speedrun strat. So do whatever's comfortable. But here what I would do is I would throw the sleeping pot. I would immediately queue up swinging my dagger once, and then queue up crouching. That combination would throw the sleeping pot, swinging the knife moves me forward a little bit, and crouching ducks me down so that they do not see me because the pillar is then blocking me.
Okay, so it's throw, swing, crouch.
So throw, swing, crouch. I did a really bad job of crouching there, but I still had time.
Because I didn't crouch right away, but it worked. Let him go back into his default position. Give him a moment.
So once the other one is back in place, I line up my head with this lower part of this, like, support arch or whatever this is. Use whatever tool you need to line up. If you're using mouse and keyboard or use a telescope, then both of them are asleep. So it's Physic, Golden Vow, Refill. You're going to do 3 charged Magic Glint Blade. Let Stamina refill, and slice the hell out of them while they're down. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I would consistently do 9. Do the same setup over here. 3 charged. And then switch the slicer. Once stamina's full. 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I just kept a counter in my head. Very consistently, I would count 8 seconds until the next spawn, if I played that all out correctly. When you're doing practice, you can find the right timing for yourself. But basically, the moment that the skinny one died is when I would start counting. And once I got to 8, I knew to throw the sleep pot. With a bit of practice, you'll figure it out. It's actually not so bad once you get it right. Switch up to a Night Comet setup. We're going to kill this first Beastman. A charge will kill him. Kill the doggo. regular cast should do it, but I think I did a charged one anyway. Kill these doggos. Kill that beast, man. It's a little bit funny shooting in front of this window. Don't get right up next to the window because then the stuff on the side will very easily block your projectile. Stay back a few feet, and that way when you cast it, it'll clear through the window without hitting anything. I don't mean to point out every single little detail, but I'm trying to point out things that I remember having little struggles with along the way. And if I can help prevent that from happening for you guys, I will gladly mention it. We're just running to the next grace before the birds.
Okay, let's grab the grace, rest.
It's good to rest here because we want the physic again, and we've already used it. So
Very good.
go ahead and rest. If you need to, just mentally prepare yourself for the next sections because it's always pretty unnerving heading up to Maliketh. But you're just going to use Night Comet throughout this whole area. Level up everything you got into mind.
Spell should be good. I don't see any problems there. We're done with sleep pots. Let's also get soft cotton ready just in case.
You can see I had the kukri equipped, and I also equipped the soft cotton, even though I'm pretty sure I never used it. I'll try and point out where I was thinking of using the soft cotton and how I was going to use it, but I wouldn't even recommend it. These birds do not require this setup to kill them. You do not need to drink the physic this early. I was mistaken, and I thought the birds had way more health than they actually do. You'll easily kill them in a single Night Comet, probably even if you don't have RTSR, I'm pretty sure. So you don't need this much damage this early, but go through and kill these birds. One thing I've noticed is there are some times when you get to this area and these birds can be out of position. I think they get glitched a little bit. So especially this one right here, I've seen him in a weird position where he's basically clipped through the vase below him that he's standing on right now, and I can't lock onto him sometimes. If you see that, go back to the previous grace, rest, let them reset, and go through again. That should fix their spawns. Make sure the lightning is clear. Also make sure that something like this doesn't happen, where you get absolutely surrounded by the lightning. It's kind of scary when that happens.
So much of it concentrated in like one tiny
Kill the birds easily. Oh, whoops. Why did I do that? I accidentally went back. Sorry, let me get back to that point. I accidentally clicked my video and went way, way back in the timeline. My bad. We just despawned the dragon. You don't need to even fire anything at him. And if you haven't seen the actual vanishing animation, if you've only seen the glitched way, there you go. You saw the real one. That's a somber 10. So one thing that I forgot frequently in practice was to actually go to plus 10 before Maliketh. I forgot to upgrade on more than one occasion. So I emphasize when you get to the next grace, go back to the round table and upgrade to plus 10. Do not forget. This is where I was thinking of using the soft cotton. I ended up just using charged R1s to kill that guy. And then you want to be really careful in this area to make sure you don't wake up the other enemy. Plenty of people go through here. You can feel free to check out other runners. and see how they're doing this. Here, I'm throwing a throwing knife. I found something that I want to explain. I think where you stand matters. Since I'm standing on this like lower elevation on this brick part, I wouldn't recommend standing there. I would recommend standing... Well, it's actually really hard because I've gotten too close and gotten hit by that guy. So experiment with different spots and different setups and find what works for you. But I think you can kill this guy and just be done with him. As long as you don't get too close, I don't think he'll throw anything at you. So I lost a run to this guy. I think you can just outright kill him with Night Comet if you keep your distance and are still able to lock on. But you can use the Kukri to distract him. So maybe that's a good setup. Use a Kukri to distract him and then kill him when he's distracted. But I have also seen that fail where I got too close again after throwing the knife and seen him aggro. You probably don't even need to kill that enemy, and I was just rolling through that guy's attack. But if you want, I see people throwing a Kukri on the wall and getting them distracted and allured over there. It's another way you can do that. Once you get this grace, again, as my splits show as well, do not forget to go to +10. You could probably do Maliketh without +10. We have so much damage, but we've got the +10 stone, and we have a consistent kill on him as long as you are +10. And I never experimented enough with +9 Maliketh to see... You know, if you just wanted to like save a trip, well, it wouldn't even matter. You come back here at some point anyway. Just come back and level up to upgrade to +10 right now. That's all you need to do anyway. There's nothing else, so it's a real quick trip, and then you're right back there.
But yeah, we got Maliketh, we've got Ashen Capital, and then we have Carian Manor and the final two. So we still got a little ways to go.
So the setup is going to be Glintblade into Slicer. And you want to make sure to have the appropriate staff equipped. You want the bonuses for both of them. So use the Glintblade staff, have it in your offhand when you're using Glintblade, and make sure when you switch to Slicer, you've got the Glintstone staff in your offhand. It's a little bit specific how this fight works, though. With this setup, with 69 intelligence... with the Physic, with RTSR, and we do not use Golden Vow until later. I'll point out when. But this is extremely consistent. I've never had problems with this. It is tight execution, though. But it works. I'm pretty sure I got this strat from Rob Teaches. I think I was doing something similar in Phase 1 using Glintblade. But I think he showed a good way to finish in Phase 2. So, props to him for passing that along to me. Again, Physic. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, drink the Physic. We're good on FP, so you don't need to refill if you don't want to. And with this, we want to do 7 Glintblade total, but you need to dodge attacks. So, I was able to get 4 there. These are 5 and 6. Make sure that they're connecting. It's possible for the projectile to miss if he moves in a funny way, so you need to be watching his health bar to make sure that you see the projectile connect, and you need to keep track of that in your head. Once you've done 6, the 7th one will phase him. So, actually, I may have messed up. Is it the 8th one? Oh, I actually refilled FP already. Did I cast Golden Vow and miss it? Was I talking? Hold on, I'm sorry. That should have been number 6. Yeah, I got around the pillar, drank my flask. Huh. Why did I not do that? It should normally be 7 to phase, right? Or am I crazy? Oh, maybe it's 8. Okay, my mistake. So it's 8 Glintstone. So you just need to refill FP at some point. And then cast Golden Vow right before you're ready to get the final projectile on him. Okay, so it's 8 Glintblade. My mistake. This is tough. Lock on, back up, 4 Glintblade, roll away, Carian Slicer setup, duck under, You don't need to actually crouch. You just get behind and finish him. That's the tough part of the fight. That's just the more precise execution. But I want to mention that when he phases, it is very easy for this lock-on to go wrong because you need to lock on quickly and you need to start moving backward to clear his sword attacks. So it's very easy for you to turn around and then press lock on and do it that way by mistake. And you'll just turn your camera around and you won't be able to see a damn thing and you'll get hit. So you got to lock on, then back up, then cast 4, roll backward, make sure you're ready with Carian Slicer, get behind and kill.
Nice.
You could probably experiment with maybe different leveling to make it even more consistent if you want. So feel free to experiment a bit if you want to. You can pop the Remembrance right away as well.
Ooh, that's a good feeling right there.
Yeah, so you set up 7 Glintblade hits before. Then you want to make sure that you have good FP and you cast Golden Vow to get the extra damage for phase 2. And then, yeah, execute phase 2. And boom, you're done.
It's pretty nice. So we're gonna do Glintblade, Comet.
So for Gideon, we only need Glintblade and Night Comet.
What are we gonna do? Glintblade.
And again, you can see my talismans. They were RTSR, Radahnn's Icon, the Endurance Talisman, and the Primal Glintstone Blade, or Primal whatever it is. Primal Glint something blade. I'm real professional and know exactly what I'm talking about. But you can see those. Once you get those, it's the same for the rest of the run. So you don't need to be messing around with those much. When you're running all remembrances, you've got a lot more work to do managing talismans at the right times, because sometimes you need stamina recovery in some places. Sometimes you need to maximize damage. You need to mess around with it more. But in the any percent, it's basically once you get a talisman, you equip it and you keep it. It's pretty straightforward. I don't trust this lift very much. I don't know why I would start getting RTSR on myself when I'm on that lift. I've seen it fail for people, so don't feel bad about waiting until you're up here to make sure you're completely safe. Pretty easy, though. Physic, Golden Vow, refill FP. We're going to do 3 charge Glintblade, and then we're going to do a number of regular Glintblade after that, and then we're going to switch to Night Comet. I think it's 3 and 3 on the charged and regular. 3 charged, 3 regular, switch to Comet. He can't see the projectiles. I have seen him roll away from the Glintblade before. He won't roll away from the Night Comet. So don't do too many Glintblade casts, because if you do if you hit him with one of the Glintblade projectiles and then you're still casting another Glintblade after that point, he can roll away from it at that point. So 3 charged and 3 regular, as long as you keep it in like quick succession, it's consecutive and you don't slow down. That works very, very well. You could probably switch it up and do like less Glintblade and more Night Comet. I'm sure that would probably work fine. But that setup, 3 charged, 3 regular, 3 charged, 3 regular Glintblade, and then switch to Night Comet has been extremely consistent. Never had a problem with it. I think at this point is when I go and make a side trip to Carian Manor, or Caria Manor, because we need to kill Ghost Loretta and get Meteorite for Elden Beast. There are some setups where you can kill Elden Beast with just Carian Slicer, but it requires a lot more stuff, and that's going to take time to get it. So you can do whatever works for you, but I like Meteorite. It's pretty nice, and Like the worst case scenario is that you get Elden Stars, you bone out, and you redo the Radahn fight, which is also very consistent with not a huge amount of effort. So taking this side trip is pretty worth it, I would say. I think it's worth it to spend the time getting this because it's very, very quick and very straightforward. So I mentioned it earlier, but there is a golden seed down in the grass below. You can kill that guy with Night Comet. You can also kill him with Carian Slicer if you want. He's weak. Same thing, kill that guy. Be careful when you're crouching here. Make sure that this guy does not see you. And if he does see you, he's going to aggro, run up the stairs, possibly wreck your day. Don't worry about us. We're just here to murder you. Set up RTSR. You probably don't even need it. We're so overpowered at this point. I'm pretty sure you could just go in and kill Ghost Loretta nice and quick. In fact, there are probably a number of places where you don't even need to set up RTSR. It's just nice to go ahead and have it and make sure that you're doing as much damage as you can. So yeah, Physic, Golden Vow, refill FP, and you just do Night Comet. I was doing something a little bit specific here, so I would cast 1, 2, 3, a minor pause, and then 4. Dodge the projectiles. You can just sprint. You could probably even just jog, and I think they'll miss you. You don't need the grace. You need the grace in all remembrances, but you don't need it in any percent.
All right, let's take a trip over here to Onyx Lord, pay him a visit.
We keep RTSR. The Physic is already active for the next boss fight. You just ride out to the Everjail down here. And Onyx Lord is like the same as Ghost Loretta. You just Night Comet 4 times. I think even 3 times. And he's dead. So this is like a very minor detour. And when we fight Elden Beast, you'll see Meteorite in action. And it just eviscerates him. So Golden Vow, refill FP. Walk backwards to spawn him. That way you have distance and time. Yeah, 3 projectiles kills him.
GG, I guess.
So there's Meteorite. We're now ready for the final 3.
All right, we're on the final stretch. Just Hoarah, Loux, Radahn, Elden Beast. Let's do it.
So I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'll make sure to mention it again.
Level up, do I? Wait, actually I may. Because of runes.
I was hoping that I would have enough runes to level up. I'm actually not sure if I could here or not. Maybe?
Is that enough? I think it is.
Might be able to squeeze out one more level. Doesn't matter. Wouldn't change anything, but it's nice to
Beautiful.
spend all the runes. Because what we're going to do is go up to Godfrey, and we're going to bone out of the first encounter, because it's one of those fights where, you know, the first time you show up, there's a special cutscene, and when you return a second time, basically the boss has an encountered flag. So if you've been there once and the boss is still alive, then it plays out differently when you enter the fog gate the second time and every time after that. So just bone out right away. That way, when we go back the second time, we don't get moved by the cutscene. There is no cutscene. You just enter the fog gate and you're at the back of the arena, and you want that instead.
Oh, wow. I've actually had my browser open for a long time. No
I
wonder
paused to check something here.
being terrible.
You know, getting ready for the end game.
All right. Let's get set up.
But yeah, it's basically time to set up our TSR.
Oh, why did I do that?
Physic and Golden Vow.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Refill.
I'm just reviewing the fight in my head to make sure I have it proper. I'll explain when we get in.
And then we go. Just gonna take a drink. And then I think we're ready.
But I mean, this fight is a joke with sorcery. Like, I named the split just spam for a reason. So lock on, run up. What I was using as a visual marker, recover stamina around here. And when you're at this plant on the side, you cast Night Comet 4 times. You could refill FP right now if you wanted to, but you can also get away with doing what I'm about to do. 4 more Night Comet, drink, and then you have time to jump. I should have recovered more stamina, but before doing that final Night Comet, the 9th one.
Could have recovered more stamina.
And then just spam. If he goes and starts the stomp, he starts charging it up, you can jump up through the stomp, and then once it's done, just do your final Night Comet and you kill him. But yeah, just spam. That's how sorcery is.
Nice.
Pop the Remembrance, do your final bit of leveling, and get ready for Thronies and Nishandra. I don't know why I was thinking this. I've tested that so many times in practice. It makes no difference at this point. So 69 intelligence, you just keep it. Keep leveling mind after that. Obviously, if you choose to do something different and find a setup that works for you, you're all good. Let me make sure I go through that again. I was talking. So the spells we're going to need are Night Comet
We go Night Comet.
into Carian Slicer. That covers Radahn. And then we just use Meteorite on Elden Beast. Now, if Meteorite goes wrong and you're not able to kill him with Meteorite, you can stay in the fight and use Carian Slicer. It's very effective. You still do plenty of damage. You don't need to bone out if things go wrong, if you're comfortable with dodging Elden Stars and all the other attacks and whatnot. But going for Meteorite is really nice, and honestly, it's a great way to end the run. So do it how you want.
And we finish with Meteorite.
So the setup we're going to use, let's make sure that we've got this correct. We're going to start off with Staff of Loss and the Glintstone Staff as our offhand staffs. Once we kill Radahn, we're going to switch from Staff of Loss to Meteorite. So it's a little bit of menuing as soon as Radahn is dead. You're also going to be switching spells and casting Golden Vow again. So there is a bit to do as soon as Radahn is dead. You'll see how it plays out.
Sorry, that's not right. And then we switch that up to that.
Talismans are the same as they've been for the past like half hour or so. So nothing else to change there. So just set up our TSR and get ready for the final fights.
All right. Night Comet, Slicer. Slicer to finish.
But yeah, 69 intelligence is perfect for this run.
Out.
It's nice.
Elden Beast.
It's just right.
Just do the thing.
Get yourself hyped up. Drink the Physic, Golden Vow, refill FP, and go. Become blind and deaf because of this nice little transition here for whatever reason. Lock on, back up for Night Comet. Switch to Carian Slicer. Roll through. 3. And back away. I was very careful here because I was worried that he was going to warp close to me. So I wasn't very good about my stamina management here. But normally what you can do instead is back up, And as soon as you see him getting ready to phase, you start running forward. You'll roll through the first one, punish once. That's what I did. I barely got that because of distance. But I don't have enough stamina to do what I normally do, so I had to just kind of let it recover a bit and play it by ear. But normally what you'll be able to do with proper stamina management is you'll roll through, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and he's dead. So instead, I did 1 and wasn't sure about my stamina. I had to roll again, and then 2, 3, 4, and he's dead. As soon as he is dead, refill FP. You probably don't need to refill FP. You can probably do Golden Vow first. I switched out my staff. Staff of Loss got replaced with Meteorite Staff, and then I got everything equipped properly. Go around Elden Beast, get in position around here, like right at his backside. As soon as you see him start shifting, kind of go with him. And then as soon as you see his body start dipping down into the water, get set up with your angle and get ready to cast and hold Meteorite. I've seen it go above 18,000 damage if everything hits. It's amazing. You do tons of damage with it. Most times he'll do Elden Rings. So I get lined up with these 2 trees that are in the center as long as he hasn't done anything else. If he swims away and doesn't do Elden Rings immediately, and he does some weird melee attack, you kind of need to adjust to get directly in front of him again. But if everything goes right, you can just line up with those 2 trees, jump, line up with basically like this area between the big tree and one next to it, or aim directly at the big tree. You can predict where he is, charge Meteorite again, and boom, he's dead before you even know it. Worst case scenario, you know, he does some weird melee attack. He goes into Elden Stars. You're not comfortable with whatever's going on. Bone out, do it again. Radahn is a very consistent fight. Not a huge amount of effort on the runner's part. And then Elden Beast is basically free. So, there you go. Sorcery only any percent, not too bad. With this routing, the IGT was 2 hours and 18 minutes. You could certainly speed that up if you just optimize some things. I would like to see this run get under 2 hours someday. So that's pretty much it. You can see we had more intelligence because that was the Great Rune that was active. So sometimes what you see, you know, when you're leveling up, it only shows like your natural attributes. It doesn't show what's increased by the Great Rune or whatever. So that's why you see a difference at the end. But that's the same as any run. I'm just letting you know. But there you go. That's the run. Hopefully that helps a bit. This is always, you know, an evolving thing. So I'm sure that more optimized strats will come out over time. So feel free to just watch other runners, see what's up, and adapt from there. But hopefully that helps a bit. And obviously, people are going to be running this over time, so make sure to keep participating in the discussions and whatnot. And yeah, have fun with it.